The undisputed #1 ranker in the world has millions of people watching his every move. He raises his staff, stares down a massive monster, and casually casts an SS-grade meteor shower that vaporizes a city-level threat in seconds. The landscape is reduced to ash. He smiles at the camera and holds up his ultimate magic artifact, promising to give it to anyone alive who can show him a more spectacular skill. The public finds the condition hilarious. They know it's a trap because no human on Earth has that kind of firepower. Enter our protagonist, sprinting to his minimum wage job. He bows furiously to his manager. He works himself to the bone just to afford expired convenience store food. He is a completely broke, zero-stat loser. Except, he used to be a legendary hero, a savior who protected an entire fantasy dimension. But the goddess of that realm wasn't exactly grateful. She held him in the palm of her hand, stripped his memories, gifted him a single dormant fragment of power, and ignored his desperate begging. She pointed a single finger and banished him back to his original reality. Now, staring at a shelf of snacks, his dormant hero fragment finally awakens. He immediately opens his status window. His physical strength is a complete joke. A single low-level mob would snap him in half. But his new EX grade trait comes with a massive loophole. He doesn't need to risk his life to learn magic. He just needs to watch a video of it. He scrolls through combat compilations like he's shopping for groceries. He pulls up the #1 ranker's stream. He walks out to an empty beginner training field. He casually points a finger at the sky. The atmosphere rips open. He summons the ranker's exact meteor storm and drops a catastrophic spell on the Mudflats. He stands entirely unharmed in the smoke, realizing he just copied the strongest attack in the world. He uploads the anonymous clip and hits enter. The internet shatters overnight. The world champion watches the footage in his bathrobe. He smirks, realizing someone actually beat his impossible challenge. He immediately sends his personal secretary to deliver the priceless artifact. She hands it to a kid wearing sweatpants. Our boy stares at the ring in absolute shock. The moment he equips it, his mana reserves explode. But endless mana doesn't fix his fragile body, so he sets up camp outside a high-level dungeon. He plans to monopolize the emergency healing market. A shadow falls over him at the entrance. An elite tank stumbles out of the portal carrying his dying teammate. Her arm is brutally mangled. They scream for a medic. Our guy panics, channels a copied recovery spell, and bathes her in golden light. The severed tissue completely regenerates in seconds. The veterans brace themselves for a massive medical bill. He glares at them and demands $2. He quickly realizes his cheat skill is a literal goldmine. Back in his room, he stares at his hands. Within days, he's swimming in cash. He drinks strawberry milk like a king. He throws out his cheap food. He moves into a luxury penthouse. Room service delivers 5-star meals while he watches his bank account multiply. He consumes the highest tier skills on Earth without lifting a finger. But his peaceful early retirement doesn't last. The dying girl he saved tracks him down. Nay, he realizes he accidentally rescued an S-rank beauty. She and her brother are top-tier veterans. She steps close to thank him properly. They are building a team for a massive boss raid, and they desperately need a healer. She invites him to join her elite guild. She winks, thinking he's just a talented rookie who needs protection. He tries to grab his money and run. They have no idea his arsenal is fully loaded, and he's about to turn their raid into a live-streamed execution. The next evening, our guy is living the absolute dream. He sits on his penthouse balcony staring out at the Seoul skyline. The broke convenience store worker is dead. The capitalist mage is born. He checks his phone as the clock ticks closer to midnight. The system chimes. He gains 10 free ability points just for breathing. Passive income is the greatest concept ever invented by mankind. He decides to reinvest his earnings and taps the upgrade button. His passive income trait hits level 2. He grins like an idiot. He takes a sip of his wine and ponders his next move. The system comes with hidden layers. Unique traits act like massive multipliers or harsh limiters for skills. Without a good trait, a user throwing a top-tier spell hits like a wet noodle. He realizes his cheat skill requires constant optimization to stay broken. He checks his current copied skills to see what sub-traits attach themselves to his arsenal. His recovery spell cures status ailments, but his magic attack trait is pure garbage. He knows he needs to test his combat capabilities in a real environment. A new tutorial quest drops on his screen. He needs to hunt 20 monsters using a copied skill to unlock more storage slots. The rewards are too good to pass up. He needs that skill storage expansion. He pulls up the video platform and searches for basic hunting skills. He finds a video of a magical girl dropping a basic fireball. The aesthetic is terrible. He hits the copy button with zero hesitation. The spell comes with an ignition trait that causes burn damage over time. He smirks. It is time to go hunting. He wonders if there is a real person behind the system handing out these quests. He arrives at the Daigwalyong sheep farm. It is an F-rank field packed with newbies and low-level beasts. He wears a brown robe to hide his identity. He waves goodbye to his short-lived retirement and steps into the monster zone. He checks the community chat while walking. The users are terrified of a guy they call the Fire Psycho. Rumor has it, he was laughing while mass murdering mobs. He sweat drops. He realizes they are talking about him. He remembers being a bit too enthusiastic during his last run. He tests the copied fireball on a massive horned bull. The blast incinerates the beast in a single hit. The sheer destructive force is intoxicating. He grins like a maniac as flames consume the field. The system confirms his kills. He is melting the local ecosystem. He completes the quest and secures his points. The upgraded passive trait drops his mana costs, letting him spam the spell. He checks the boss raid board. Someone posted a public raid for an obsidian bear. He realizes his fireball spam is perfect for a boss fight. His face lights up. He pulls up a video of the target, an obsidian bear. It is a towering behemoth with glowing red eyes. He arrives at the zone. The vanguard tanks are struggling to hold the line against the massive creature. The system issues a new quest to hunt the field boss. He watches from the trees, waiting for his moment. The bear rears back. Its claws rip through the air. The shockwave knocks the hunters back. The vanguard screams in terror. A concentrated orb of fire forms in the distance. The raid members are doing 0 damage. The bear unleashes a massive roar. The sound shatters the air and triggers a devastating shockwave. It enters a berserk phase, and system alerts flood the screen. The roar is an A-grade debuff that crushes physical stats. The hunters drop to their knees as their strength and agility hit rock bottom. The beast is inches away from crushing them. A new prompt appears in front of our guy. He can copy the bear's roar. He hits the copy button without thinking twice. The system attaches a random subtrait called Oblivion. It nullifies the mana cost of the copied skill. He possesses a massive debuff attack that he can spam for free. His eyes widen with excitement. He prepares to test his new toy. He casts the copied roar to stack massive stat boosts on himself. His power skyrockets. He steps out of the bushes and raises his hand. A concentrated fireball forms at his fingertip. The heat distorts the air. He unleashes the explosion point blank. Yet the blast radius engulfs the monster. The sky turns bright orange. He defeats the boss and clears the tutorial quest in one move. He stands in the aftermath, grinning like a demon. The blast turns the giant bear into a charred carcass. The raid team stares at the crater in dead silence. They recognize the crazed grin and the brown robe. They realize the legendary fire psycho is standing right in front of them. The hunters fall to their knees, thanking him for saving their lives. He revels in the praise. He absorbs the soul of the boss monster, claiming the ultimate prize. A golden aura erupts from the bear's corpse. The boss item has dropped. He is thrilled with his haul. It is a pair of pitch black bear gloves. The stats are decent, but the activation conditions are a nightmare. He decides the gear isn't worth the hassle. A guy in a crisp white suit emerges from the trees with 2 bodyguards. He is a boss item hunter. He offers to buy the drop. Boss item hunters sweep up premium gear for cash. He opens a briefcase to reveal stacks of high denomination bills. Our guy takes the money and heads straight to the premium gear shop. He drops 63 million won without blinking. Looking broke is a thing of the past. He is ready to gear up. He smirks. The capitalist mage is fully equipped. Back at the hotel, he checks his progression. To upgrade his skill storage, he needs 4,000 points. His passive income is too slow. He needs a faster way to farm points. He figures out a loophole in the system logic. If he copies the same skill multiple times, the system attaches different random traits. He gambles his points on a healing light spell. He pulls up the video and hits copy. He deletes the old version and copies it again. He repeats the process, burning through his attempts. He hits the jackpot. The system attaches a 5% experience buff to his healing spell. He heads back to the dungeon entrance with a cardboard sign. He advertises the ultra-rare experience buff for 1 million won per cast. Experience buffs are mythical in this world. The veteran hunters stare in disbelief. They swarm him like sharks smelling blood in the water. He stands there holding his sign, ready to rake in millions of won per minute. The crowd parts as a familiar face approaches. The S-rank beauty he saved earlier walks up with her tank brother. She recognizes her mysterious savior and smiles. She tells him their party needs a buffer for an upcoming boss raid. Our guy tries to focus on his paying customers. He triggers his healing light to prove the buff is real. The golden aura washes over the crowd. She hands him her business card. The rest of the hunters scream for his services. He collects stacks of cash, rejecting credit cards like a true businessman. Later, he meets up with the beauty's raid team. Her brother still thinks he is dead weight. She defends him, claiming they have enough firepower to carry a newbie. Our guy just wants the points. They arrive at the Garorim Bay mudflats. The terrain is a nightmare of thick sludge. The beauty casts an area of effect firestorm. The flames scorch the mud. She winks at our guy, showing off her S-rank power. He admires his new leather armor. The set bonus gives him a much-needed stat boost. He hits a button and upgrades his passive income again. He now earns 200 points a day just for existing. He does the math in his head. The wait time to reach the next tier is unbearable. He decides he has to complete the field boss raid to speed things up. He adjusts his glasses. The capitalist mage is ready for business. The mud restricts movement. The tanks and melee fighters complain about losing their footing. He prefers the clean grass of the sheep farm. Our guy realizes he accidentally joined a group date. The blonde raid leader flirts with a female archer. He stands on the dry ground, keeping his pristine white armor clean. He prepares to explain the strategy. He explains that the mudflat crab boss gains speed every time it takes a debuff. They have to kill it using pure physical damage. Our guy realizes his copied magic skills might be useless here. The mud bubbles. The boss bursts out of the sludge. It is a massive armored crab. The archers rain arrows down on its shell. The attacks bounce off harmlessly. The melee fighters charge in with heavy hammers. The blonde leader looks terrified as the beast shifts its focus. Our guy shakes his head at the cowardice. The giant crab lunges forward. It moves sideways at terrifying speeds, plowing through the mud. Our guy adjusts his glasses. The fight has turned into a slow, agonizing grind. The system details the crab's traits. It resists status changes and buffs its own stats. He realizes he hit hit the jackpot. This is the perfect environment for his specific skill set. The crab slides sideways, knocking the tank off his feet. The blonde leader orders everyone to stick to physical attacks. Our guy thinks the strategy is a joke. He decides it is time to step in. The blonde leader orders the beauty to buff him. She channels a high-tier spell. Radiant Authority floods the battlefield with light. It is an SS grade buff that stacks massive random stat boosts. He can't believe a skill this broken is sitting right in front of him. The leader prepares to charge. Our guy copies her SS grade buff on the spot. He combines it with his own trait. His body surges with god tier energy. The beauty is stunned by the sudden spike in mana. He tells everyone he is taking the main course for himself. He points his finger at the colossal crab. He triggers a chained explosion skill. The sky turns red. A massive pillar of fire erupts from the mud. The blast cooks the massive crab inside its own shell. The entire Mudflat smells like a high-end seafood restaurant. The leader tries to act tough and swings his sword at the cooked carcass. He strikes the empty shell. He flashes a thumbs up, acting like he delivered the final blow. He asks the beauty for her number. She ignores him and runs over to praise our guy instead. Our guy ignores the compliments. He just wants to go home. The entire party crowds around him, begging for his contact info. The beauty suggests giving all the loot to our guy. The leader walks away in defeat. The beauty watches our guy leave. She realizes she just met an absolute monster. He triggers his fireball to clear a path through a roaming boar. Back home, he collapses on the grass outside his place, exhausted by the social interaction. He finally crosses the 4,000 point threshold. He upgrades his skill storage. He can hold multiple apocalyptic spells now. He rolls around in the grass, annoyed by the constant grind. He prays for a simple quest with a massive payout. He jumps up. A main quest has appeared. He stares at the screen. The danger level is off the charts. News broadcasts announce that massive high-level special fields are spawning across the globe. Earth is turning into a nightmare. Giant flying beasts swarm the skies. The Sky Island Kanel field has spawned right over Seoul, casting a shadow across the entire city. A giant dome appears over Tokyo, throwing the entire nation into chaos. He stares at the footage. An army of level 70 monsters is crossing into the city. Evacuation orders sound worldwide. Millions of people are fleeing their homes. The government promises full support for any hunters willing to risk their lives. He pulls out his earbuds. The noise is deafening. He walks toward the user association building. The system lists his massive arsenal of passive and active traits. The mandatory main quest demands he conquer the Sky Island to ensure humanity's survival. He clenches his fist. His peaceful retirement is cancelled. Ju-Yun stares at the glowing cursed accessories resting inside the premium velvet case. The system interface details the exact items he requested. He closes the box. The stats reduce his physical strength and agility, but the mana pool expansion is undeniable. He calculates his odds. Taking a hit to his physical body is fine if he relies entirely on magic to survive. A thought crosses his mind. He wonders how much a full set of defensive armor would cost to offset the risk. He grins, imagining himself wrapped in high-tier defensive gear. The saleswoman names the price without breaking her polite retail smile. 400 million won. Ju-Yun closes his eyes and smiles through the absolute financial pain. He decides the accessories are enough. The capitalist mage refuses to drop house-level money on a chest plate. He takes his small box and leaves the store. A massive dimensional gate towers over the Seoul skyline, projecting a brilliant blue beam into the clouds. Ju-Yun stands outside the entrance in his cheap brown robe, surrounded by high-level users in full tactical gear. He bought a chest-mounted body cam instead of glasses. He figures recording his dungeon runs might be profitable later. He pulls out his phone to check the community forums before stepping inside. The reviews are a nightmare. Users warn that the monsters hit like trucks, and the flying mobs make Vanguard tanks useless. He sweats reading the warnings. This F-rank field sounds like a massive trap, but he takes a step forward anyway. He needs the points to upgrade his skills. The moment he crosses the threshold, gravity vanishes beneath his boots. He drops straight out of the sky, falling toward a sprawling green landscape. He lands on his rear in the soft grass, unharmed and relieved. A group of round green slimes stare up at him. They do not look hostile in the slightest. He turns to run as a massive shadow eclipses the sun. A giant eagle dives from the clouds, snatching a user right off the grass. The man screams as the talons dig into his back armor. The bird carries him high into the sky, ignoring his struggles. Ju-Yun watches the guy vanish into the clouds. He decides it is time to retreat immediately. A second eagle locks eyes with him and folds its wings. Ju-Yun looks back in shock as the massive bird dives straight for his head. A heavy shield slams into the dirt right in front of him. A tank in silver armor intercepts the charge. As a whole flock of eagles descends on their position, screeching. The tank holds the line, taking the full force of the flock crashing against his tower shield. The kinetic force pushes him back, but the defensive line holds firm. A mage steps up behind him. She channels magic into her intricate staff. A massive torrent of flames erupts from the artifact, spiraling into the sky. The blast incinerates the entire flock in seconds. Burning feathers fall like snow. Ju-Yun watches the ashes fall. The damage output is staggering. The mage wipes her forehead. She is out of breath, but satisfied with the clear. The tank stretches his arms, warning her not to get careless just because they survived one wave. Ju-Yun strokes his chin. He debates whether he should copy her firestorm skill to add to his arsenal. He tries to slip away into the tall grass while they are distracted. The mage completes complains about their lack of a dedicated healer. She spots movement and turns her head. Juyon kicks a curious slime out of his path. He freezes. He recognizes the voices behind him. It is the S-rank beauty, Hyeji, and her tank brother. Juyon forces an awkward smile. He cannot escape now without looking suspicious. The green slime bounces away. It cries cartoonish tears, rubbing its bumped head. The tank remembers Juyon. He recognizes him as the useless rookie from the Mudflats. Juyon adjusts his boot, trying his best to avoid eye contact with the towering warrior. The tank pulls Hyeji aside and whispers that adding a deadweight rookie to this raid is a terrible idea. Juyon turns his back, hoping they just ignore him and walk away. Hyeji grabs his arm tight, her face beaming with excitement. Juyon tries to pry her fingers off his sleeve. She insists they party up. She promises to carry him through the entire field if he just tags along. Juyon closes his eyes. He realizes he has no choice. He tells her he needs to step away for a minute to copy a skill. He walks away, leaving the siblings standing in the grass, utterly confused. He hides behind a rock and pulls out his phone. Above the siblings, a massive eagle grabs a boulder with its thick talons. The bird drops the massive rock straight toward the tank. The tank raises his shield. The boulder smashes into the barrier, cracking the stone on impact. Juyon peeks out from his hiding spot. The monsters here are using actual tactics. Two armored rhinos charge across the field, aiming right for the siblings' flank. Juyon rushes out from behind the rock. Hyeji steps past him, her staff raised and glowing with heat. She casts Firewall, erecting a blazing barrier to block the rhino charge. She follows up with a barrage of fire spears, raining destruction down on the beasts. She smiles, wiping the sweat from her brow. The immediate threat is neutralized. The tank scolds Juyon for standing around doing nothing while they clear the mobs. Juyon is too busy admiring her S-rank combat skills to care about the scolding. Hyeji laughs, gripping her staff with obvious pride. She thinks Juyon is just a gold digger, hoping to leech off their success. The swamp water bubbles near their feet. A massive crocodile erupts from the surface, its jaws wide open and aiming for the tank. The tank and Hyeji step back, caught off guard by the sudden ambush. Juyon thrusts his hand forward. A massive fireball slams straight into the beast's mouth. The tank and Hyeji stare at him in total shock. The system diagram explains the discrepancy. A normal fireball is the size of a baseball. Juyon's is the size of a meteor. Juyon acts surprised, covering his mouth like he made a mistake. Hyeji approaches him suspiciously. She demands to know why a healer has an attack stat higher than an S-rank mage. The system window shows his overcharge trait. It doubles mana consumption for 20% more damage. Juyon scratches his chin. He lies smoothly, calling it a basic self-defense mechanism. Hyeji asks how much raw mana he is holding to afford an attack that massive. His status window reveals the truth. His pool is over 1,500. The tank glares at him, deeply suspicious of the entire story. Juyon sweats. He decides he needs to be much more careful, using his copied skills around veterans. A guy in tactical gear holds a knife over a crying green slime. He plunges the blade into the helpless mob, finishing the kill. The man turns to his squad, telling them to stop playing with weak mobs and keep an eye on the sky. The squad leader complains. He feels insulted that high-level users like them have to slum it in a D-rank field. He kicks a subordinate, ordering them to find a bigger target to kill. A system prompt announces that the creature kill quota for the Sky Island has been met. The sky darkens. The master of Sky Island awakens. The squad leader looks up, his bravado fading instantly. A massive angelic figure descends from the clouds, radiating a blinding white light. The players stare up in awe at the sheer scale of the creature. A single golden feather falls from the sky. The boss, Kanel, hovers in the air. The system details its celestial sword skill. Juyon looks up, his jaw dropping. Glowing swords rain down from the heavens like artillery fire. The blades slam into the earth, obliterating the ground and sending shockwaves through the field. The squad leader's men are crushed. The survivor screams, clutching his shattered leg. The tank blocks a falling blade with his shield, but the impact slaps him with a crushing debuff. Juyon casts his recovery light, bathing the tank in a healing glow. Kanel reveals its full form. It is a level 59 field boss with overwhelming stats. Juyon sweats. This monster is way above his current pay grade. He tells Hyeji they need to run away. The system triggers a subquest offering massive rewards for the kill. The next day, Juyon sits at his laptop, scouring the community forums for information on the Kanel raid. He clicks on a video clip uploaded by a survivor of the initial spawn. The footage shows Kanel hovering over the ruined field. Players point at the sky in terror as the boss charges its next attack. The celestial swords fall like rain, devastating the vanguard line. A female archer struggles to lift her weapon under the crushing weight of the debuff. A swordsman drops to his knees, his stats cut in half by the holy magic. The green slimes on the ground start vibrating, corrupted by a dark aura. The slimes split open, their forms mutating rapidly. Giant armored insects burst out of the slime shells, fully formed and aggressive. The insects swarm the survivors, adding to the absolute chaos of the battlefield. Juyon stares at his monitor in shock. He leans back in his chair. He realizes running away from that fight was the smartest thing he has ever ever done. He touches his chin. He needs to raise his physical stats if he ever wants to survive a raid of that caliber. His phone vibrates on the desk, buzzing against the wood. He jumps in his chair, startled by the sudden noise. He checks the screen. It is an incoming call from Hyeji. He answers the phone, confused why she is calling him so soon. She asks if he has been back to the Sky Island since their retreat. He says no. She explains the situation. The Sky Island monsters are leaving the zone and descending on Seoul. It is a time attack to clear the boss. She gets straight to the point. A massive guild raid is forming to kill Kanel, and she wants him on the team. He stares at his phone, shocked by the sudden invitation to an endgame raid. A few days later, the players gather at the Seoul Grand Park swamp field. Juyeon hides behind a larger player, spotting famous A-rank users walking around the prep zone. He shrinks into his collar. He feels entirely out of place among these seasoned veterans. He explains to Hyeji that he left his mage robe at home on purpose to hide his identity. Hyeji waves at him from across the clearing. She smiles brightly, her brother standing stoically behind her. Juyeon points to his chest, asking if it is really okay for an F-rank user to join this elite squad. She winks. She assures him his debuff removal skill is the only counter to Kanel's sword rain. He is essential. Heavy armored boots crunch against the gravel. The raid leader arrives. The crowd parts, murmuring in awe at the man's presence. Hyeji points him out to Juyeon. It is SS rank warrior Lee Hyesung, the leader of the #1 guild in the country. Hyesung addresses the crowd. He demands a quick test raid to check everyone's synergy before they face Kanel. He draws his massive silver broadsword, ready for the warm-up. Hyeji smiles. She plans to redeem her guild's reputation during this run. Juyeon is surprised by how bluntly Hyesung barks orders. The man wastes no time on social graces. Still, Juyeon admits the SS rank warrior looks incredible standing there in full plate armor. A giant lizard monster bursts out of the swamp water. It swings a heavy blade, but Hyesung easily parries the strike. Juyeon decides to stick to magic. Wielding a sword with his base stats is a death sentence. He watches Hyesung clash with the beast. The movements feel oddly familiar to him. Juyeon decides to hold back on physical combat until he finds a reliable way to boost his stats. Hyesung grins, dropping into a wide stance. His eyes flash red under the shadow of his hair. He swings his broadsword in a massive arc, cutting straight through 3 lizard men in a single fluid motion. The tank praises Juyeon, assuming Juyeon is holding back his attack spells to conserve mana for healing. Juyeon stares past him, his attention caught by a group of masked raiders observing from the trees. He opens his system window, reviewing the blood frenzy skill he copied from one of them earlier. Hyesung stands victorious, driving his sword through the chest of a dead monster. The swamp water ripples violently. The field boss emerges. A massive crowned lizard king roars at the raid party. It stands twice as tall as the standard mobs, wielding a giant bone sword. The players panic, caught off guard by the sudden boss spawn. Hyesung's eyes glow bright red, his aura flaring. He activates Limit Break. His attack power surges by an entire grade for 60 seconds. He launches himself high into the air, raising his broadsword over his head. The blade comes down like a guillotine, splitting the Lizard King's guard in half. The system confirms the kill. Juyeon absorbs a fraction of the boss' soul and gains a new catalyst skill just for standing there. Hyeji complains. The boss died too fast for her to cast a single spell. The tank scolds her, reminding her that she almost died to a flock of eagles just a few days ago. Juyeon checks his system log in disbelief. He got boss loot without swinging a weapon once. Hyeji explains the mechanics. His debuff removals during the raid counted as contribution points. Juyeon's eyes go wide. He realizes party hunting is literally free experience. Hyesung rests his broadsword on his shoulder. The warm-up is over. He addresses the group, preparing to distribute the drops and conclude the briefing. Juyeon reads the description of his new catalyst skill. It amplifies poison damage on enemies. He grins. The free ride strategy is working perfectly. He checks the traits he copied from Hyesung and the Raider. Limit Break and Blood Frenzy, 2 top-tier physical buffs. He smiles warmly, deeply satisfied with his new god-tier loadout. The capitalist mage is ready to go home. The next day. The Kanel raid is tomorrow. Juyeon flops onto his bed, exhausted from running tedious errands. He checks his status window. He has accumulated 4,000 skill points. He spent all day grinding low-level crustacean monsters to farm the points. He complains about the system feeding him endless E-rank daily quests, but he admits the steady income is incredibly lucky. He sits up, crossing his legs. It is time to upgrade. He opens his interface and clicks to level up his skill copy trait. The system consumes the points, upgrading his sample sub-trait to level 3. He maps out his strategy. He needs to combine Blood Frenzy, Radiant Authority, and Change Resistance. He envisions the synergy. The buff stack will turn him into a physical god. He clenches his fists, vibrating with excitement at the thought of that much raw power. He checks his current storage slots. He holds Radiant Authority, Fireball, and Change Resistance. A massive werewolf monster growls at him in a dark mountain field. Juyeon grins and unleashes a massive fireball straight into his chest. He is ready to test the limits of his new buffs. Meanwhile, the internet community is going crazy over a new video upload. The thumbnail shows a hooded mage in the Gapyeong field. The footage shows Juyeon standing in front of a massive serpent boss. The snake lunges with its tail, and Juyeon easily sidesteps the massive strike. He counters with a fireball that engulfs the entire screen in roaring flames. A low-level user recording from the bushes zooms in on Juyan's face. Juyan's eyes glow red under his hood as he dodges another strike with superhuman speed. The fireball incinerates the snake, lighting up the night sky. The user recording the video screams in terror as the snake's burning tail thrashes near his hiding spot. Juyan delivers the final blow, turning the boss into ash. A sleek black luxury car pulls up to a high-end estate. The boss item hunter from the sheep farm checks his phone in the back seat. He smirks, highly entertained by the viral footage. He holds up his phone, watching the hooded mage destroy the snake. He knows exactly who the psychopath mage is. It is the kid he gave the cursed ring to. His assistant confirms the identity. She wonders how a mage is moving with Vanguard-level agility. The hunter notes the same thing. Juyan dodges with minimal movement, like someone who has mastered close combat. The assistant asks for her next orders. He tells her to monitor the raider guild. He suspects they will target Juyan for his loot. He walks toward the mansion, hoping the raiders don't cause trouble for his favorite investment. Back in his apartment, Juyan sits at his desk, working on his computer. He smiles, bringing up the viral video of his fight. He looks at the view count on his phone. It is over 4 million. His smile vanishes. He did all the work, and some random guy in the bushes is making all the ad revenue. He yells in frustration. The video doesn't even show his face clearly enough to claim credit, and he decides to get his own channel verified and upload his body cam footage directly. He plans to title it Level 10 Beginner Mage Solos Field Boss. He laughs like a maniac, imagining himself swimming in subscriber cash. Later that night, Juyan wanders through a dark field, complaining about the pitch black conditions. He groans. He is still exhausted from hunting the snake boss earlier. He spots a glowing blue orb resting on a massive black root. He walks closer, inspecting the glowing sphere. He triggers his system scan. It is the special field essence he needs for his daily quest. He sighs. The system confirms he collected 1 out of 10. That means he has to search the entire field. He curses his luck. If it wasn't a B rank reward, he would have quit the quest already. Title card. A giant eagle dives from the dark sky, all aiming its talons at his head. Juyan effortlessly sidesteps the attack, moving faster than the bird can track. He realizes his body moved automatically to dodge the attack, entirely driven by his passive buffs. He waves his hand. He decides to figure out the mechanics of his reflex boost later. A massive explosion rocks the clearing ahead, lighting up the sky. He peeks out and sees several users in tactical gear standing in the field. A guy with a sword and an arrogant smirk directs his squad. The raider looks down at a dead eagle at his feet. They have tracked Kanel to this location. The masked raiders gather in the dark, preparing to crash the official raid. The raider leader grins maliciously, his plan falling into place. He puts on his red mask. He intends to kill the raid team and steal the boss loot for himself. Juyan ignores them. His system chimes, confirming he completed the monster kill portion of his quest. He picks up the final essence orb, completing the gathering requirement. A massive shockwave rips through the forest, throwing Juyan off balance. Kanel clashes with Hyeseung high in the sky. The impact sends a shockwave of light across the entire field. Juyan watches the sky explode with holy magic. He realizes the official guild raid is happening right now, directly above him. The raid team fires a volley of arrows at the descending angel. Hyeseung yells at his archers to focus their fire on the boss's wings. Juyan panics. If the boss dies before he gets involved, he loses his sub-quest reward. He checks his quest log. The objective clearly states he must defeat Kanel. He strokes his chin. The system doesn't specify that he has to deal the most damage. He decides to play it smart. He will hide in the bushes and wait to snipe the final hit. Kanel flaps its massive wings, generating a hurricane-force wind. The boss crashes into the ground, scattering Hyeseung's vanguard in every direction. Kanel lands aggressively, raising its staff. Juyan sits comfortably in the bushes, content to watch the professionals do the heavy lifting. A system prompt flashes. Kanel's health has dropped below 50%, triggering its third phase. The boss unleashes a massive shockwave, sweeping the raid team off their feet. Juyan watches the dust settle, realizing the raid team is struggling. Kanel's eyes glow crimson as it prepares another team-wiping attack. Hyeseung clashes his broadsword against Kanel's staff, holding the monster back. The collision of their weapons creates a blinding explosion of golden light. The shockwave sends a masked raider flying through the air. He crashes into the dirt right next to Juyan. The raider hits the ground hard, groaning in pain. Another raider runs over to check on his fallen comrade. The two raiders spot Juyan crouching in his brown robe. They draw their swords. Juyan panics. He quickly pulls out a spare red mask he looted earlier and slaps it on his face. He pretends to be one of them, caught in the crossfire. The raiders hesitate, but they tell him to get a grip and join the formation. Juyan adjusts the mask, playing along to survive. He follows them into the fray, slipping past their guard. The system announces his daily quest is complete. It rewards him with a powerful 24-hour buff. Title card. Hyeseung and Kanel trade heavy blows, locked in a brutal melee exchange. The masked raiders swarm the field, throwing fireballs at Hyeseung's vanguard. A massive blue fireball drops from the sky, wiping out a cluster of raiders. Juyan stands among the PK ears, realizing this ambush is ruining the entire raid. Kanel unleashes a massive AoE attack, forcing both sides to scatter. Juyan smirks. He feels the raw power of his new quest buff coursing through his veins. Kanel spreads its wings, gathering dark energy. The system warns that if Kanel loses another 10% of its health, it will summon the entire field to its defense. Kanel glows with golden light, triggering the summon order. A giant rhino monster charges into the clearing, blocking Haesung's path. The raid members look on in shock as the local mobs join the fight against them. The raider leader realizes the raid is falling apart. He draws his sword. He orders his men to wipe out the remaining raid members while Haesung is distracted. A raider attacks a raid member from behind, slashing him across the back. The raiders flood the exhausted raid team, turning the battle into a slaughter. Juyan watches, disgusted. He hates PK heirs more than he hates the monsters. Haesung cuts down a raider, but his team is overwhelmed. Title card. Haesung glares at the raiders. Then he realizes they aren't just stealing the boss. They are executing innocent players. He steps forward, his broadsword raised, preparing to fight them all off. The raider leader grins wickedly. He knows he has the advantage. He gives the order. The raiders charge the broken defensive line. A raider stands over a fallen raid member, raising his knife for the execution. Juyan panics. If the healers die, the entire raid wipes and he gets nothing. The battlefield devolves into total chaos. Raiders stab at the raid members, while eagles attack from above. Giant insects swarm the downed players, adding to the massacre. Haesung's eyes glow bright red. He prepares to sacrifice his own health to clear the swarm. Juyan decides he has to act. He casts Fire Spear, launching a blazing projectile into the fray. A raider raises his combat knife over Hyeji, ready to strike. He brings the blade down toward her neck. Juyan unleashes a torrent of water and wind magic, blasting the raider off her before the knife connects. Juyan stands in front of Hyeji, his back turned, acting as her shield. Haesung watches the system timer hovering over the battlefield. Juyan kicks an advancing raider in the chest, sending him flying backward. He casts ice magic, blasting 2 more raiders into the dirt. Juyan checks his phone. The clock hits midnight. His copy attempts reset. He immediately activates Blood Frenzy, surging his physical stats by 20%. He casts Fireball, wrapping his hands in intense blue flames. Juyan's eyes glow red beneath his mask. He is ready to end this. The system confirms his monster kills and increasing his skill effects with every death. He blitzes past Haesung, moving faster than the SS rank warrior can track. Juyan jumps high into the air, aiming straight for the boss. He prepares to strike Kanel with everything he has. Juyan collides with Kanel. The massive explosion of blue fire shatters the sky. Juyan lands smoothly. Kanel falls toward the earth. Juyan curses. He realizes the impact broke his disguise. The celestial sword array shatters into fragments of blue light. Kanel enters its final phase, summoning a massive glowing spear from the heavens. The boss grips the weapon, preparing its ultimate attack. A golden barrier expands, pushing all the players back. Juyan stands his ground inside the barrier, crossing his arms. He has to finish it now. A massive flash of light engulfs the crater as Juyan unleashes his attack. Add page. Skip. Kanel's holy armor shatters completely, cracking under the force of the blast. The boss looks down in defeat, its power broken. Juyan stands in the center of the crater. His red mask crumbles off his face. The mask shatters into pieces, revealing his identity to the survivors. Kanel begins to disintegrate into particles of blue light. Juyan catches the falling boss weapon before it hits the ground. Kanel fades entirely, leaving only ash behind. The raider leader curses. The boss died before he could claim the final hit. The glowing boss item rests in the center of the ruined crater. The raider leader glares at Haesung, furious that his ambush failed. Haesung points his broadsword at the raiders, telling them to get lost while they still can. The system announces the main quest is complete. Juyan has 10 seconds before he is transported out. Juyan stares blankly at the prompt. The raider leader steps forward aggressively, demanding the boss item. The raiders surround the exhausted raid team. The raider leader yells at Haesung, accusing him of stealing the kill. He curses, refusing to leave empty-handed. Juyan grabs the boss item necklace, ignoring the argument completely. He waves goodbye to Haesung and teleports away in a flash of light. Haesung looks around the empty crater. He realizes he just got robbed blind. Title card. The system windows show Juyan's massive rewards, 10,000 SP and an upgrade ticket. Juyan reads the system logs in the dark void. He acquired the boss skill Descent and absorbed Kanel's soul. A tiny hand reaches out, tapping the air in front of him. Ego, the fairy tutorial guide, appears in a burst of light. She introduces herself formally. Juyan stares at her, confused. He thought the tutorial phase ended weeks ago. He wonders if this is a special event triggered by his X-grade unique trait. Ego smiles, asking if he wants to claim his rewards before they proceed. Juyan eagerly agrees, ready for the payout. The system grants him a sub-trait upgrade ticket. Ego displays his skill tree, asking him to choose which ability to evolve. Juyan rubs his chin. Upgrading passive income is tempting for long-term point farming, but he knows he barely survived Kanel. He needs more combat power immediately. He decides that increasing the number of usable skills is his only safe option. He uses the ticket on sample, upgrading it to level 3. He celebrates his new stats. He can now store up to 4 copied skills per day. He opens the main quest reward box, eager to see the contents. Chibi Juyon celebrates the massive SP payout. It is a total jackpot. The system grants him the Blue Rising subtrait. It adds random options to his copied skills. Juyeon pulls out Kanel's cursed necklace. The stat boosts are insanely high. He checks the details of his new boss skill, Descent. He realizes Descent is a broken panic button. It fully restores his health and mana when he drops below 10%. He uses his remaining SP to upgrade his skill efficiency, reducing his overall mana costs. He levels up Trait Imbuement. His copied skills now guarantee a random unique trait effect. He upgrades Daily Quest to level 2. He will only receive B rank or higher quests from now on. Juyeon floats in the starry void, completely satisfied with his new god tier loadout. Ego smiles warmly, signaling the end of the reward phase. She announces that the real tutorial begins now. She asks if he remembers the final line of the main quest description. One of the system log flashes in his memory: for the survival of Earth and humanity. Ego's face turns deadly serious. She projects a vision of demons and undead monsters destroying Earth. The text appears: by invaders from another dimension. Add page, skip. Add page, skip. A news reporter announces that Sky Island Kanel has naturally disappeared following the successful boss raid. Heavily armed military personnel guard a glowing dimensional gate, unaware of the real threat approaching. Reporters swarm Hisung, shoving microphones in his face. Hisung refuses to answer questions about the unidentified runaway mage who stole the boss kill. The reporters press him for details on the boss item drop. Hisung bluntly tells them that's all and ends the interview. He walks away, throwing his broadsword over his shoulder in sheer frustration. Hyeji sits on a couch in a luxury lounge, scrolling through her phone. She tries to call Juyeon. The call cannot be connected and forwards to voicemail. Her tank brother asks why she is still calling him. He thinks her guess is wrong. Hyeji deduces the runaway mage's identity. The combat style, the massive fireball, and the healing skills all point to one person. She knows Psycho Pass is Yu Juyeon. The phone suddenly connects. Hyeji sits up, thrilled. She gets straight to the point, bluntly asking if he was the mage who saved her during the Kanel raid. Juyeon stammers on the other end, denying the accusation completely. He insists he never even made it to the raid site. Hyeji drops the friendly act. She knows it was him. Juyeon lies about being in the middle of a shower and abruptly hangs up. Hyeji glares at her phone. She refuses to let him play games with her. Title card. Juyeon sits in his bathroom, relieved that she probably won't call back. He checks his phone screen. Hyeji is calling him every single minute. Back in the void, Ego tells him not to stress over the impending apocalypse. She explains that the system granted him a special power specifically to fight the invaders. His Skillmaster trait is a lesser god fragment. It gives him the authority to alter reality. Juyeon asks why a cosmic entity would give a power like that to a broke convenience store clerk. Chibi Juyeon jokes that he must have been too honest during his mandatory military service. Ego tells him not to overthink the cosmic reasoning. The power is simply his reward for surviving the early stages of the system. She tells him he has one final choice to make before he leaves. Juyeon looks at her, confused by the sudden weight in her tone. Ego explains that the god fragment can blossom fully, or it can go dormant, depending entirely on his decision. He looks at his hand. The power is his to control. He can use it purely for his own selfish survival, or bear the weight of saving the world. Ego assures him that salvation isn't a duty. It is simply a choice. The void fades to white. The tutorial sequence ends. Juyeon sits in his bathtub, soaking in hot water. He thinks the whole save the world speech is ridiculous. He splashes water over his face. He gives up on playing the hero. He just wants beer and chicken. Hyeji sits on her couch, finalizing her notes on a tablet. Her screen shows a deduction chart linking Juyeon's healing skills to the massive fireball of Psycho Pass. She is completely certain Yu Juyeon is definitely Psycho Pass. She tells her brother she needs to meet Juyeon in person to confirm her theory. The tank asks why she is so obsessed with this specific guy. She circles S rank on her tablet in red ink. She explains that if she is going to risk her life in high-level fields, she wants the strongest player in the world watching her back. The tank sighs heavily, exhausted by her relentless ambition. He puts a hand on her shoulder, telling her to stop doing reckless things. Hyeji claps her hands together, predicting Juyeon's next move. She explains that since Juyeon hates attention, he will avoid the high traffic zones and look for an isolated D-rank field. She narrows the options down to a spider den on the outskirts of the metro area. The tank equips his heavy armor, ready to follow her as usual. Juyeon freezes at the field entrance. Hyeji and the tank are waiting right in his path. She drops the act immediately, demanding the truth. Juyeon sweats. He insists he is just a regular healer looking for materials. The tank raises his hand, offering a flat rate of 501 per hour for his services. Juyeon tries to refuse the insulting offer. The tank steps closer, reminding Juyeon that he still owes them a massive favor from the Mudflats. Juyeon breaks into a cold sweat. He sighs, accepting the extortion. He has no way out of this. They agree to head into the field together. Hyeji stops him before they cross the threshold. She uses the exact restroom excuse Juyeon used to escape earlier. The tank groans at the blatant callback. Add page, skip. Inside the den, Hyeji calls him out directly. She smiles brightly, all confirming that he is the runaway mage Psycho Pass. Juyeon admits it, asking her to keep his identity a secret from the association. He rubs his forehead, completely defeated by her deduction skills. The tank glares at him from behind, annoyed by all the sneaking around. A giant spider leg drops from the ceiling right behind Juyeon. Hyeji asks how he plans to fight without his signature fire magic. Juyeon draws his new blazing blazing burst sword. The blade glows red hot in the dark cave. Hyeji is surprised. She didn't know he was a magic swordsman too. Juyeon casts Ice Spear, channeling the frost magic directly into the blazing blade. He adds his poison trait to the ice, coating the weapon in the toxic sludge. He launches himself at the advancing spider swarm. The Ice Spear pierces the lead spiders, injecting lethal poison through their armor. The entire swarm freezes solid in seconds. Juyeon activates Catalyst, amplifying the poison damage on the frozen targets. The massive burst damage obliterates the spiders, melting them into green sludge. Hyeji admits the ice magic is incredibly useful, even if it lacks the raw explosive power of his fireball. Title card. At a BBQ restaurant, Hyeji chugs a massive pint of beer to celebrate the successful hunt. Juyeon watches her, mildly terrified of her drinking capacity. He planned to bail, but she dragged him here. The system confirms he absorbed the soul of the Queen Spider field boss during the run. Juyeon remembers finishing the boss in one hit while the siblings were distracted. The tank glares at him across the table. He knows Juyeon hogged all the contribution points. Hyeji demands he buy the meat to make up for the stolen boss soul. Juyeon sips his drink quietly, resigning himself to paying the massive bill. The tank slams his empty mug on the table, demanding another round. Hyeji leans over the table. She has a serious business proposal for him. She reminds him that monsters aren't the only danger in the field. Player killers are a very real threat. She points out that solo hunting is fine for low levels, but impossible in high-tier zones without a dedicated tank. Juyeon pours a shot of soju. He listens silently. He knows she is right. The raider ambush at Kanel proved that solo players are easy targets. Hyeji insists he needs a dedicated party to survive the endgame content. The tank adds that dealing with taxes and item liquidations as a solo player is a bureaucratic nightmare. Hyeji slides a formal management contract across the table. She offers to handle all his business and legal needs. Juyeon reads the terms. He knows trustworthy partners are incredibly rare in this business. She leans in close. She tells him she wants to be the absolute best in the world. She smiles confidently, promising to put his name at the very top of the leaderboards if he signs. The tank takes a drink. He agrees with his sister, stating he would rather die than stay weak. Juyeon signs the paper without hesitation. He smiles. Having an S-rank mage handle his taxes is the best deal he has ever made. Hyeji reads the signed document, thrilled to officially lock in her secret weapon. The tank orders more pork to celebrate the new partnership. Juyeon admits the offer was simply too good to refuse. Hyeji glows with excitement. The team is finally assembled. She mentions that the contract includes a free luxury office tel right next door to her own apartment. She hands him a black corporate card. She promises to manage all the money he earns from hunting. Juyeon sits in his massive new penthouse suite, staring out the window at the city lights. He tests his skills in a high-level field the next day. The synergy is flawless. Hyeji covers his blind spots with a massive wall of fire. Hunting with a partner is infinitely better than fighting alone. Hyeji's new aura is undeniable. She practically glows with S-rank confidence. Her brother clenches his heavy gauntlet. Having a god-tier mage on the roster is already paying off. He holds the vanguard line against a massive scaled beast, while the magic deals the heavy damage. Juyeon checks his system interface. His copied Blood Frenzy trait just upgraded all the way to EX grade. He stares at the screen like he just won the national lottery. Sitting in his new luxury penthouse, he plans his next move. It is time to test Ice Spear in the field. Hyeji walks in wearing casual clothes, ready to serve up premium meat for her ace. Juyeon waves his phone. He has no time to eat. He needs to head back into the hunting zone. He pulls up a bright, flashy fireball tutorial on UserTube. At the field entrance, the tank sweats. They are heading into a C-rank zone with only 3 people. Hyeji brushes off his concern. She has absolute faith in their new party dynamic. He taps his heavy metal boot against the ground, still deeply skeptical. Juyeon flashes a wide grin. He tells the armored giant there is zero reason to worry. The system warns of extreme danger. Packs of massive orcs and werewolves crowd the recommended level preview. Juyeon steps forward. With his new Blood Combat EX, he plans to monopolize the entire experience pool. They enter the Unok Natural Recreation Forest, a C-rank field infamous for mutated plant monsters. Giant twisted roots form into towering wooden behemoths with glowing white eyes. Juyeon steps right past the vanguard line. He knows exactly how to handle this ecosystem. The fireball leaves his hand. He sets the entire tree line ablaze. Fire is the ultimate undisputed counter to wood-type mobs. He covers his face, giddy. Even his random traits are blessing today's hunt. He triggers his blood combat buff. A dark crimson aura erupts around his brown robe. He follows up with a blinding chain explosion that rips through the canopy. The sheer destructive scale leaves the seasoned tank entirely speechless. Hyeji wipes a bead of sweat. Her new client hits harder than most dedicated raid bosses. Juyeon throws his head back and laughs like a maniac as the forest burns to cinders. The siblings watch from a safe distance, finally understanding why the internet dubbed him Psycho Pass. A man in a sharp black suit watches the carnage from behind the tree line. He confirms the target on his monitor. The skills in the brown robe match the profile. A combat knife cuts through the air, aimed right at the distracted mage. The suited man grins, expecting an easy, clean assassination. Juyeon stands untouched in the clearing, the ambush having missed him entirely. He checks his system window, watching his level shoot from 15 to 17. He kneels down to grab what looks like an item drop, but his hand finds bone instead. He holds the skeletal hand up, his face dropping into pure shock. Hyeji rushes over, alarmed by his sudden distress. He tosses the bones away, wondering if his massive AoE spell just incinerated an innocent player. Hyeji crouches down to examine the remains. She points out that simple fire magic does not leave a clean skeleton. This user was PK'd, stripped of all gear, and left to rot long before Juyeon ever cast a spell. They stand over the body. The threat level in this serene forest just doubled. She seems unfazed. She tells him murder is just another common hazard in the field. He absorbs the reality of the situation. The monsters are not the only predators here. He asks if she has ever been targeted by player killers. She casually recalls a time when her own party members tried to split her head open with an axe. Monsters are predictable enemies. Humans will smile at you before taking your life and your loot. She flashes a dazzling smile, boasting that she is pretty enough to be a prime target, but her eyes darken. They weren't just after her items. That day marked her brother's first time taking a human life to protect her. She claps her hands together, breaking the dark tension with forced cheerfulness. She tells Juyeon to hide behind his new big brother the moment things look dangerous. Juyeon laughs off the protection offer. His physical stats are stacked high enough to rival a vanguard. A metallic orb rolls across the dirt right to his heavy leather boots. He blinks, staring down at the strange device. The orb detonates, releasing a massive cloud of pink smoke. The tank steps in front as the thick gas washes over their position. Juyeon chokes on the fumes, his vision clouded by the thick haze. The ground shudders beneath their feet. The trees surrounding them begin to shift. Dozens of glowing yellow eyes pierce the smoke. The tank plants his feet and raises his massive shield, bracing for impact. Juyeon scrambles backward, separating from the vanguard line to find a clear vantage point. In the bushes, a sniper locks a heavy crossbow onto Juyeon's chest. The projectile whistles through the air. Juyeon turns his head just in time. Daihe leans back as the heavy bolt grazes his shoulder. He stands his ground. They underestimated his agility stats. The system windows pop up. The attack failed to stun him, but it applied a heavy pain debuff. The masked raider emerges from the trees, grinning like a butcher. Back at the defensive line, the tank takes a massive blow from a wooden behemoth. Hyeji thrusts her staff forward, unleashing a blazing spear of fire. The flames punch a hole straight through the monster's thick trunk. Three more towering beasts step into the clearing to replace the fallen one. She grits her teeth. The sheer volume of enemies is too much for a normal party to handle. The tank grabs Juyeon's robe and hauls him forward, acting as a human bulldozer. He plows his shield straight through the advancing timber, clearing a narrow path. Another metallic orb rolls through the dirt right toward their feet. Hyeji drops a firestorm, erecting a wall of heat to block the incoming threat. The orb bounces through the roaring flames. A squad of armed men steps casually out of the surrounding brush. The tank demands to know who they are. The squad leader ignores him, pointing directly at Juyeon's slouched figure. Hyeji does not wait for an introduction. She launches another fire spear. The leader tilts his head, letting the lethal flames pass harmlessly by his ear. She gasps. His evasion speed is inhuman. The leader recognizes Juyeon. He is the rogue mage from the Kanel raid. He tosses another pheromone bomb directly at Juyeon's position. The explosive scent draws every single mob in the zone to their exact location. Hyeji realizes they cannot fight the players and the monster wave at the same time. The massive wooden constructs close the circle, trapping the trio. The tank takes a devastating blow from above, driving him into the dirt. Juyeon grabs the injured warrior, trying to pull him back from the front line. The pain debuff ravages Juyeon's nerves. His body refuses to move the way he wants it to. Blood splatters across his cheek. The reality of the situation hits him hard. Hyeji pants for breath, her staff heavy, while her brother struggles to lift his shield. Juyeon holds the vanguard up. The defensive line is on the verge of total collapse. Hyeji asks if Juyeon can still stand on his own 2 feet. Juyeon pulls out his smartphone. He needs a miracle, and he needs it right now. He tells them he has one shameless favor to ask. The siblings brace themselves against the oncoming horde, ready to buy him time. The ambush leader steps closer, his heavy boots crunching against the earth. He offers them a painless death if they surrender the loot quietly. Juyeon pushes himself up, using the tank's broad shoulder for leverage. The leader mocks him, assuming the robe mage is already broken. Juyeon breathes heavily, his stamina drained by the debuffs. The leader promises to slice him up until nothing but bone remains. Juyeon raises his hand, his eyes burning with intense, unyielding focus. Massive golden magic circles expand beneath his boots, illuminating the dark forest. The ambushers freeze. They realize instantly that those are not standard fireball runes. Juyeon points his finger straight up toward the sky. He casts Meteor Rain, the world's strongest ultimate skill. Colossal flaming boulders drop from the heavens, tearing through the cloud cover. The raid leader panics as the sky literally falls on his entire squad. He screams in raw terror as the shadows of the meteors swallow him. The meteors strike the earth, shattering the ground and vaporizing the monster wave on impact. Expanding rings of golden fire consume the forest, melting everything in their path. The sheer kinetic force of the blast waves flattens the remaining trees into ash. The smoke slowly clears from the massive scorched crater. Hyeji and her brother stand at the edge, perfectly unharmed, staring at the devastation. Juyeon collapses onto his back, and drained of energy, he stares at the sky. If he hadn't used a teleport skill to save his party, they would be ash too. Back in the safety of his luxury penthouse, Juyeon reviews his skill storage slots. The teleport trait is a game changer. It lets him move marked targets instantly across the battlefield. He kicks his legs like a kid on Christmas morning. The gacha rolls are finally paying off. He remembers the aftermath of the blast. Hyeji demanded an explanation for the sudden mass transit, but she quickly got distracted, eagerly calling in the cleanup crew to secure the boss drops. News of the massive crater at the Unak forest hits the internet the very next day. The community assumes the world's #1 ranker, Muhammad Al, secretly visited Korea. Juyeon sweats. His identity as Psycho-Pass is getting dangerously close to being exposed. Hyeji and the tank visit his apartment to discuss their precarious situation. He decides to come clean. He admits his EX class trait allows him to copy and use any skill he sees. Hyeji's jaw drops. That explains how he can heal, deal damage, and buff all at the same time. She asks if he can copy her unique spells. He confirms it without hesitation. The tank leans forward. This effectively makes Juyeon a one-man army, limited only by his equipment. She presses her hands together, her eyes sparkling with the limitless potential of his trait. Juyeon raises a hand, cutting off her excitement. He wants to keep the exact mechanics a secret. The tank shifts the topic. He wants to know who coordinated the highly trained ambush squad. Juyeon bites his thumb. He suspects it is the same group that tried to hijack the Kanel boss raid. Hyeji's expression sharpens. She puts a name to the threat, the Raider Guild. They are a global syndicate notorious for hoarding boss items and eliminating any competition. The cleanup crew recovered several high-tier boss artifacts from the ashes of the ambushers. She warns him that making an enemy of an organization with branches worldwide is a massive problem. Juyeon shivers. The reality of having a global hit squad on his tail settles in. After they leave, he flops onto his bed. He needs more power, and he needs it yesterday. He opens his status window, reviewing the 30,000 skill points he accumulated from daily quests. He dumps 5,000 points straight into his passive income trait to ensure a steady supply. He wishes he could just lie down and let the points pile up automatically without grinding. He spends the remaining 25,000 points to upgrade his trait grant ability to level 3. He stretches his arms behind his head, thrilled with the increased buff efficiency. But the real prize is the newly unlocked sub-trait. The system grants him skill storage. He can now permanently save one copied ability without losing it. He groans, clutching his head. If this unlocked earlier, he could have saved his god-tier combat buffs. He raises his hand, ready to lock in his selection. He permanently stores resistance to change, securing his defensive foundation. With that saved, he can use it unlimited times from storage while keeping his copy slots open. He locks in Radiant Power and Blood Combat alongside it. The ultimate Holy Trinity is ready. He decides to take a few days off to let his passive income build up before his next hunt. A few days later, Juyeon and the siblings sit in dead silence across from a very unexpected guest. Muhammad Al, the undisputed #1 ranker in the world, smiles warmly from Juyeon's couch. Juyeon was just trying to leave his apartment when the most famous man on Earth knocked on his door. Al informs them that he had his team suppress the rumors linking Psycho-Pass to the Kanel raid. Juyeon narrows his eyes. He wants to know why a man of that caliber is sitting in his living room. Al leans forward, his playful demeanor shifting into absolute seriousness. He confirms that the ambushers were operatives from the global-scale Raider Guild. Hyeji crosses her arms, unsurprised by the confirmation. Al reveals that he is already quietly at war with the syndicate across multiple fronts. Thanks to his intelligence network, he knows they are currently gathering at the Ganjiam Resort ski field. They are searching for a hidden artifact left behind by their previous leader. Hyeji asks why Al does not just go there and crush them himself. He explains that any direct action from him would attract too much international political attention. His secretary taps his shoulder. It is time for his next scheduled meeting. He stands up, wishing they had more time for a relaxed chat. Juyeon sits quietly, processing the weight of the information he just received. Al leaves the choice to them. Wipe out the enemy together, or protect their own safety and hide. A pale hand firmly grips the severed tail of a massive reptilian beast. Yet a woman with sharp red eyes and a dark crimson mark on her forehead stands victorious. She steps past the colossal corpse of the field boss, surrounded by her kneeling subordinates. This is Lin Xiaoling. She corrects her lieutenant. She is no longer just a leader, she is the new boss. She declares that the era of normal users is over. Those who hoard the boss items will hold the true power. Juyeon stands in the freezing wind of the Ganjiam ski field, bundled up in a thick coat and earmuffs. It is a C-rank zone covered in perpetual blizzards, making visibility and movement incredibly difficult. Hyeji smiles brightly, suggesting they finish the hunt quickly and go skiing afterward. The tank remains skeptical. Striking a massive guild's operation with only 3 people feels like suicide. And Hyeji assures him she already safely liquidated the boss items they recovered from the last attack. The tank panics, realizing that means the Raider Guild definitely knows they are involved. She pats her head, laughing it off. She let her guard down on purpose to draw them out. Juyeon realizes he is now officially part of their crazy veteran dynamic, whether he likes it or not. Two armed guards block their path, claiming the field is under the exclusive control of the Enjoy Guild. Hyeji asks what right a random guild has to block a public hunting ground. Her eyes turn cold. She despises groups that try to monopolize the system. The guard smirks, resting his hand on his sword hilt, fully expecting them to back down. Juyeon steps forward, his face cast entirely in shadow. Hyeji laughs out loud, thrilled to see her ace taking the initiative. A concentrated sphere of flames ignites in the palm of Juyeon's glove. He charges forward, his brown robe snapping wildly in the freezing wind. The guards stumble backward, instantly recognizing the roaring flames and the brown cloak. He asks them if they want to experience what true, overwhelming control feels like. The guards stammer, their cheap bravado evaporating under the heat of the spell. A massive fireball detonates, launching the guards screaming into the snowbanks. He glares down at the survivor, promising to kill him if he ever shows his face again. Hyeji watches in awe. Juyeon's raw, unfiltered dominance is incredibly intoxicating. He immediately reverts to his dopey, awkward smile, and entirely breaking the tension. He scratches his head. It is his first time threatening someone, and he admits it felt pretty good. A pack of massive ice werewolves leaps through the blinding snowstorm. They land on an Enjoy Guild member, tearing him apart before he can even draw his weapon. Juyeon obliterates the beasts with a swirling pillar of concentrated fire. The Enjoy members panic, demanding to know who the man in the white cloak is. The guard yells that the field is closed, totally unaware of who he is speaking to. The man in white ignores them completely, walking calmly toward the ridge. The guard tries to strike him from behind, but gets instantly cut down by the man's hidden subordinates. The raider lieutenant approaches his commander, apologizing for the delay in securing the perimeter. The commander splits his team. He half will search for the artifact, half will eliminate any disruptions. Their ultimate target is the deepest cave near the snowy summit. They are hunting the legendary Bracelet of Mimicry, a priceless artifact left by their founder. Back at the base, Juyeon stretches his arms. They made it inside without drawing the main force. The tank scans the area, wondering how they are supposed to tell the Enjoy Guild apart from the raiders. Juyeon strokes his chin, analyzing the situation from a strictly capitalist perspective. He deduces the raiders' true goal. Since they only want treasure, they won't care about farming monster experience. An evil smirk spreads across his face. He has a brilliant, highly toxic plan. High on the ridge, the disguised raiders scan the frozen forest for the cave entrance. A small metallic object lands softly in the snow behind them. They turn around just in time to see a massive horde of giant werewolves breach the tree line. The monster wave crashes into the raider squad with devastating momentum. Juyeon watches from a nearby cliff. The view of his enemies getting mauled is spectacular. He notes that hitting people with pheromone bombs works flawlessly every single time. The raiders draw their blades, cutting down the beasts with brutal practiced efficiency. The tank observes their combat skills. Every one of them is vastly overleveled for this C-rank zone. They leave the monster corpses behind without collecting a single item, confirming Juyeon's theory. Juyeon leads his party forward, tracking the operatives through the blowing snow. He tosses another pheromone bomb ahead, generously providing more distractions for their enemies. Hyeji watches him work, genuinely impressed by how comfortable he is with psychological warfare. The raider squad finally locates the hidden cavern on their map. They sprint across the snow, desperate to secure the item and leave the frozen hellscape. Juyeon's party arrives at the ridge just in time to see them enter. The jackpot is waiting. Hyeji asks what the brilliant tactician wants to do next. Juyeon states he is going to ambush the very people who tried to kill him. She waves her hand in front of his face, pulling him out of his intense focus. He snaps back to reality, immediately drawing his heavy mechanical crossbow. Inside the cavern, the raider team complains about the sheer volume of monsters outside. Juyeon locks the sights onto the nearest target, perfectly hidden in the shadows. He fires. The bolt strikes a raider's broadsword, failing to pierce the armor, but the kinetic force knocks the man entirely off his feet. The system confirms the hit. The Bow of Weakening applies a massive stun debuff, regardless of damage dealt. The tank steps out of the shadows, his massive shield raised and ready. A second raider screams in agony as the pain debuff ravages his nervous system. Deep inside the cave, the raider commander tries to contact his perimeter team. Static electricity arcs across the commander's glove as he realizes they are under attack. The surviving raiders raise a magic nullification shield, bracing for an elemental assault. Hyeji unleashes Firestorm, sending a tidal wave of flames down the tunnel. The flames crash against the barrier, but the shield absorbs the vast majority of the heat. Juyeon follows up instantly with thunder, dropping a massive lightning bolt directly onto the vanguard. The electrical current bypasses the shield, shocking the heavy infantry into submission. The raider lieutenant yells for his mages to counterattack before the paralysis sets in. Two infantrymen charge forward, attempting to break Juyeon's casting stance. Juyeon channels radiant authority, bathing the cavern in blinding golden light. He triggers Limit Break, pushing his physical and magical stats beyond their natural threshold. The system windows flood his vision as random massive buffs stack on his character. He unleashes a highly concentrated torrent of fire straight through their broken defensive line. The lieutenant is thrown backward, his armor scorched black by the intense heat. Juyeon extends his hand, thanking them for gathering the treasure for him. He closes his fist, triggering the secondary effect. The chain explosion detonates detonates, reducing the entire squad to burning cinders. The raider commander sprints down the tunnel, desperate to reach his men. He orders his rear guard to secure the area and prepare for extraction. The massive explosion rocks the mountain peak, shaking the ground beneath his feet. He screams at everyone to abandon their posts and rush the summit immediately. He arrives too late. His men are scattered across the snow, completely decimated. Zhu Yan stands in the center of the ruins, his arms literally overflowing with looted boss items. Xieji watches him hoard the gear, warning him that carrying that much stolen loot will paint a massive target on his back. Thus, the tank inspects a discarded heavy shield, noting its high-tier defensive stats. She touches her chin, debating the safest way to liquidate the haul without leaving a paper trail. The tank blushes, firmly stating he has zero intention of selling the shield. He is keeping it. Juyan digs through the pile and tosses a small, intricate box to Xieji. She opens it. The bracelet of mimicry glints beautifully in the sunlight. It is an SS-grade accessory that copies 50% of another equipped item's raw stats. She winks at him, knowing exactly how powerful this artifact is in the right hands. She tosses it right back to him. As the party's primary damage dealer, he needs the stat boost the most. Juyan bows repeatedly, jokingly praising her as a literal goddess of generosity. Before they leave, Juyan notices a blinking light on one of the fallen raiders' chests. He brutally stomps on every body cam in the snow, ensuring no digital evidence survives. Back at the Raider Guild headquarters, Lin Xiaoling sits in her throne, vibrating with absolute fury. Her knuckles turn white as she demands her subordinate repeat his report. The terrified lieutenant keeps his head pressed to the floor. He confirms the bracelet of mimicry was stolen. She screams at him. She sent an elite combat unit capable of clearing field bosses, and they lost to scavengers. The surviving footage shows Yuyan's party using pheromone bombs to trigger the monster wave. She rubs her temples, her patience entirely exhausted by the sheer incompetence of her men. He explains that the culprit used multiple high-tier skills and destroyed the body cams to prevent combat analysis. She steps down hard, her heel pressing into the lieutenant's back. She vows to dissect this psychopath thoroughly, so there will not be a second mistake. Back in Seoul, Juyan sits comfortably in his penthouse, enjoying the safety of his fortress. Xieji scolds him. She wants to hold on to the boss items for now, instead of selling them on the black market. She deliberately left her brother's name on the registration to avoid suspicion, much to his profound annoyance. She pulls out a tablet, shifting the conversation to their next immediate priority, Juyan's level progression. She reviews the level limits for each field rank. They need to maximize his gains before he caps out. Juyan raises his hand eagerly, confirming he is currently level 20. He lists off the low-rank bosses they have systematically hunted down over the past week. He is exactly one boss soul short of completing the F-rank collection. The system map highlights all the available regular open fields scattered across the region. Xieji explains their strategy: stick to unpopular fields to avoid the attention of major guilds. A massive storm of sand erupts on the coastal dunes. The Sand Giant, an E-rank field boss, roars at the tiny humans intruding on its territory. Juyan stands his ground, projecting a dense ring of fire to melt the incoming sand. He absorbs the boss soul, completing another hunt with absolute terrifying efficiency. Xieji and the tank walk up, slightly numb to how easy he makes this look. He checks his phone timer, 5 minutes and 45 seconds. A new personal record. Xieji wraps her arms around him, cheering that they finally secured full ownership of the E-rank souls. Juyan flexes his wrist. The bracelet of mimicry is putting in an absurd amount of work. By copying Kanel's necklace, it applies a massive 15-point boost to every single one of his base stats. He laughs out loud, feeling the raw power surge through him. He feels completely invincible. Xieji walks away humming a tune, already thinking about their next high-yield target. Later that night, his consciousness is pulled back into the starry void. Ego, the fairy, is waiting. She taps the surface of the cosmic water, sending ripples across the universe. The system announces a new main quest: conquer an E-rank special field called the Land of Hell Plague. He snaps back to reality, staring blankly ahead. Xieji asks if he just unlocked a new skill. He shakes his head, explaining that the system just handed him a massive progression quest. A massive grin spreads across his face. The reward is a staggering 100,000 SP. He pulls out his phone to check the location details for the Hell Plague Land. He completely freezes. The average temperature of the field is negative 40 degrees Celsius. Xieji is stunned. Special fields are notoriously brutal, and the environmental hazards alone are lethal. Juyan sighs, rubbing his neck. He knows it is an insane difficulty spike, but the payout is too high to ignore. The tank warns that they lack the experience and numbers to run a full-scale raid operation by themselves. Furthermore, getting permission to enter a restricted overseas field without a major guild backing them is nearly impossible. Xieji waves her hand, putting a pin in the logistical nightmare. They need to focus on phase 2 of his spec upgrade first. She points out his current strategy relies entirely on buffing up and spamming Fireball. He needs more S-rank utility skills. She explains that high-level users intentionally hide their best skills, making them impossible to copy from public videos. She introduces him to a bizarre concept: buff sellers, players who literally sit in town and charge money to cast buffs buffs. Juyeon rubs his chin. Finding someone willing to sell an S-rank buff is going to be incredibly expensive. She hands him a contact number, promising that this specific seller owes her a favor. Juyeon shows the screen to the tank, already calculating the profit margins of permanent god-tier buffs. Back in the void, Ego smiles warmly as the system confirms Juyeon accepted the second main quest. She tells him that as he continues to fight, the fragments of his lost memories will gradually return. Her expression softens. She knows he is longing for something deeper than just survival and wealth. A vision flashes, a lone warrior in a torn blue cape, holding a sword against the darkness. She whispers that the hero who saved her world is still alive, buried somewhere deep inside him, but she admits the tragedy of the situation. Without his memories, is he truly the same person? The projection expands, revealing Ego's true form, a colossal cosmic entity maintaining the balance of dimensions. She wonders if he will make the same self-sacrificing choices he made in his past life. The vision shifts to show his new reality, his new party, his new friends, his new life. She promises not to force his hand. Whether he saves the world or walks away is entirely his choice. The heavy silence of the void is broken by the sharp click of modern shoes stepping onto the pavement. A cheerful girl, with hair tied in twin buns, waves brightly, her phone pressed to her ear. Juyeon and the siblings meet her in a quiet public park. Hyeji is immediately suspicious. The girl traveled all the way to Seoul without demanding upfront travel expenses. Juyeon strikes a pose, jokingly claiming his natural charisma is just that magnetic. The tank stares at him, and profoundly unamused by the sudden burst of narcissism. The girl latches onto Juyeon's arm, loudly calling him Oppa to Hyeji's immediate disgust. She leans in close, pouting that he took entirely too long to call her. Hyeji glares at the display, her protective instincts flaring up. Juyeon laughs awkwardly, gently trying to pry her hands off his jacket. Hyeji steps between them, projecting an aura so intense a spectral tiger literally manifests behind her. She chops Juyeon on the back of the head, violently re-establishing her position as his manager. The tank holds Juyeon upright, as Hyeji formally asks for the girl's buff catalog. Juyeon recovers quickly, telling the girl to discuss the financial details with his very aggressive sponsor. The two women stare each other down, sparks practically flying between them. Juyeon breaks the tension, excitedly describing his ideal buff, a massive supermarket discount package of raw stat boosts. The girl hums, tapping her chin as she processes the highly specific request. She places a hand over her chest, a confident smile spreading across her face. She channels celestial performance, projecting a massive, blinding set of angelic wings. Juyeon copies the SS grade skill instantly, his eyes wide at the staggering stat multipliers. She stands proudly, knowing she just delivered the highest quality merchandise on the market. Back in the void, Ego watches nervously. There are far better defensive skills he could be copying for this mission. The system flashes an image of his past life, a heavily armored knight prepared for war. But Juyeon simply smiles, that he firmly believes the absolute best defense is an overwhelming, unstoppable offense. He checks his updated status window. With these new modifiers, he is finally ready for the endgame. Meanwhile, the internet community is losing its collective mind over the recent guild wipes. Users debate whether Psychopaths is a rogue menace or a necessary evil punishing corrupt factions. A highly detailed post links the destruction of the Enjoy Guild directly to his intervention. The embedded video shows Juyeon in his signature brown robe, unleashing hell on the vanguard. The thread shifts focus to the newly opened E-grade special field, the Land of Hell Plague. The attached images show frozen corpses scattered across a brutal, unforgiving wasteland. Juyeon sits on a rock in the park, reading the grim statistics of the death toll. The tank points out that waiting for the field boss to naturally spawn is a fool's errand. He argues that entering a special field without extensive specialized preparation is a death sentence. He plants his massive new shield into the dirt to emphasize his point. He refuses to let Juyeon drag his sister into a suicide mission just to clear a system quest. Juyeon completely ignores the lecture, aggressively tapping his screen to re-roll his blood battle skill. Hyeji snaps at him, demanding to know if he is even listening to the life or death briefing. He curses his phone. The skill copy cooldown expired, but the rank up absolutely refuses to trigger. He hits the button again. Blood Battle SS drops for the 4th time in a row. He screams internally. The system gacha mechanics are designed purely to induce suffering. Suddenly, the screen flashes gold. Blood Battle EX has been successfully synthesized. The tank turns to his sister, insisting that their primary damage dealer needs to take this seriously. Juyeon literally jumps into the air, screaming in pure, unadulterated triumph. The grind is finally over. Before the tank can scold him again, Hyeji's phone rings with an urgent high-priority alert. Her expression turns dead serious. The call is from Lee Hyesung, the SS rank guildmaster of Daehan. She hangs up and relays the message. The Hell Plague Land is actively recruiting an expedition team. Nip the catch. Hyesung specifically requested the presence of the miraculous healer he met at the Kanel raid. The expedition orientation takes place in a massive, privately rented concert hall. Ju-yeon slinks down the aisle, highly uncomfortable with the sheer concentration of elite users in one room. Hyeji grabs his cheeks, forcing him to stand up straight and look presentable. Hye-sung stands center stage, projecting absolute authority over the gathered crowd. He announces that every user here was handpicked from the survivors of the Sky Island incident. The room applauds as he officially opens the strategy briefing for the 10-day expedition. He insists on a brief introduction session to establish baseline trust among the raid members. He starts, listing his level 39 status and his SS grade critical hit trait. S-rank tankers, their elite buffers, and veteran elementalists stand up one by one to state their credentials. Ju-yeon sweats. He is severely underleveled compared to every single person in this room. He stands up anyway, igniting a massive sphere of fire in his hand to skip the resume check. Hye-sung smirks. The arrogant display is exactly what he expects from a powerhouse. After the orientation, the crowd disperses. Hyeji suggests grabbing dinner to celebrate. Hye-sung blocks the aisle, his eyes locked dead on Woo-yeon's face. Hyeji immediately steps in front of Ju-yeon, her hand resting dangerously close to her staff. Ju-yeon gently pushes her aside, crossing his arms to meet the SS rank warrior head-on. Hye-sung directly accuses him of colluding with the masked PK ears during the Kanel boss fight. He demands to know why Ju-yeon stole the boss item and vanished while the raid team bled. Ju-yeon does not flinch. He firmly states that he intervened to save lives, not to steal. Hye-sung exhales. He admits he only pushed the issue because 2 of his guild members died that day. He turns away, accepting the explanation. He needs Ju-yeon's firepower more than he needs a scapegoat. Hyeji drops her guard, letting out a massive sigh of relief as the tension dissipates. The tank wipes his forehead. He genuinely thought they were going to have to fight their way out of the building. He admits this outcome is infinitely better than Hye-sung declaring a blood feud. Ju-yeon checks his phone, eager to leave the building before anyone else tries to confront him. He sighs. He thought revealing himself as Psycho Pass would cause a panic, but the reaction was surprisingly tame. He overhears 2 veterans whispering in the lobby about his display. A new post hits the user board. Psycho Pass stared down Hye-sung without blinking. He scrolls through the comments, watching his reputation morph into an unstoppable urban legend. The replies are a mix of sheer disbelief and genuine terror. He shrinks into his collar, thoroughly mortified by the exaggerated internet hype. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit command center of the Raider Guild, Lin Xiaoling sits in silence. She throws a stack of intelligence reports onto the heavy mahogany table. Her elite operatives kneel before her, awaiting their deployment orders. The documents detail the movements of every major faction entering the Hell Plague Land. The top file displays a photograph of Saintess Suha, the miraculous healer of the Jinli cult. D-Day. Ju-yeon steps off the transport bus, wrapped in a thick parka and heavy snow gear. He shivers violently. The negative 40-degree wind cuts straight through the thermal layers. Hyeji teases him, suggesting he just cast a few fireballs to keep himself warm. An old local guide approaches the team, his face weathered by the brutal climate. He explains that the special field's influence has permanently corrupted the surrounding weather patterns. He bows deeply, begging the hunters to eradicate the plague before it consumes the entire region. Soft footsteps crunch against the snow as a group in immaculate white cloaks arrives. This is the Jinli cult, a religious faction known for gathering followers through supposed miracles. They usually swindle low-level players with cheap skills and false promises of salvation. Ju-yeon blinks, wondering what a scam guild is doing at an S-tier raid deployment. The answer is Saintess Suha. Her miraculous S-rank healing abilities legitimized the entire cult overnight. Hyeji watches them pass, deeply suspicious of their sudden involvement in frontline combat. Ju-yeon points, finally remembering where he read about their notorious reputation on the forums. Suha glances over her shoulder, offering a serene, deeply unsettling smile. A heavily armed cultist shoves past Ju-yeon, violently clearing the path for his Saintess. He mocks Ju-yeon as a lost lamb who has yet to experience the grace of their god. The white-cloaked figures march straight toward the dimensional gate. They claim the right to enter first to prepare the area for a holy purification ritual. Ju-yeon grits his teeth, highly annoyed by the blatant arrogance of the scam artists. The tank whispers to Hyeji, agreeing that the cult's presence here makes zero tactical sense. Lee Hye-seong, the raid leader of the Daihan Guild, approaches the group with a calm demeanor. He introduces himself to the commander of the mercenary faction. They shake hands, establishing a temporary truce before stepping into the war zone. Hye-sung suggests that each faction stick entirely to their own strategies to avoid friendly fire. His eyes narrow slightly. The implication is clear: stay out of his way, and he will stay out of theirs. The various teams begin their final march toward the towering blue portal. Hyeji pulls Ju-yeon close. She warns him not to wander off alone under any circumstances. The tank scans the crowd. He knows the disguised raider operatives are hiding among the mercenaries. The massive dimensional gate pulses with cold, ominous energy. Hye-sung draws his broadsword and asks if the vanguard is ready to deploy. He leads the charge, stepping through the portal into the unknown. The Hell Plague Land is a frozen nightmare of jagged ice spikes and suffocating blizzards. They are immediately met by a massive horde of skeletal knights riding armored undead horses. forces. The tank slams his shield into the frozen earth, absorbing the impact of a heavy cavalry lance. Hours later, the battle finally ends. The exhausted hunters collapse around a makeshift campfire. Hyeji slumps against a rock, her mana reserves severely depleted by the relentless cold. She glances sideways, making sure the other factions are keeping their distance. Juyan checks his system interface. The slaughter fully stacked his blood combat EX trait. Hyesung stands before the weary group, raising his voice over the howling wind. He reminds them that standard elemental magic is significantly weakened in this environment. Juyon and the tank listen closely. Survival here requires adapting to the absolute worst conditions. A flashback to 2 days ago, right before a deployment. Juyon paces around a warm hotel room, trying to finalize his skill loadout. Hyeji throws a pillow at him, demanding they coordinate their buffs before entering the portal. Juyon explains that at higher field ranks, raw stats matter less than exploiting elemental weaknesses. Fire melts wood, heavy physical strikes shatter metal. The rules of engagement are absolute. The Kanel raid proved that specialized builds are mandatory. A pure melee fighter cannot kill a flying boss. He adjusts his gloves, a confident smirk on his face. He knows exactly what he needs to survive this frozen hell. Hyeji gives the expedition team a grim reality check. High levels mean nothing if they lack the correct elemental counters. The tank listens closely. The undead mobs in this zone will shrug off standard physical damage like it is a light breeze. Basic fire magic works, but it lacks the divine attribute needed to purify the corruption at its source. Juyon pulls out his phone, scrolling through his massive catalog of copied abilities. He finds the exact tool for the job: Spear of Judgment, a holy attribute strike that deals critical damage to corrupted targets. A horde of decaying skeletal warriors charges across the frozen wasteland. Blazing projectiles rain down, scorching the front line to ash. Juyon stands tall, his new holy skills turning him into a one-man artillery battery. The tank watches the holy light eradicate the mobs. Having a god-tier mage on the roster feels like a cheat code. A massive explosion clears the path, scattering glowing bone fragments across the snow. But the system issues a chilling alert. The dead users revive as slaves of the plague. Dark energy swirls around the fallen corpses, knitting the broken bones back together. Hyeji gasps. The slain monsters are rising again, stronger than before. Hyesung approaches with his broadsword resting on his shoulder. They need to smash the heads or burn the bodies to dust to stop the resurrection cycle. The Daehan Guildmaster orders his scouts to establish a perimeter and hold the line. A scout rushes back, panic written across his face. He hands over a device. They caught something massive on the body cam footage. A colossal armored Minotaur glares through the digital static. The beast acts as a regional commander, directing the endless undead horde. Hyesung rejects the idea of a ranged assault. They lack the frontline numbers to hold off the swarm while chipping down the boss. He makes a bold declaration. He will handle the boss personally. Hyesung coats his blade in a golden aura, plunging into the horde to build his combat stacks before the main event. He grins, trusting Juyon to cover his blind spots while he slaughters the vanguard. Juyon keeps his distance, stealthily siphoning blood combat stacks from the dying mobs without lifting a finger. The strategy is set. Pull the boss toward the narrow canyon and isolate it from the swarm. Hyesung stands at the edge of the frozen cliff, ready to draw the aggro. The massive Minotaur bursts through the blizzard. The vanguard sprints into position, weapons drawn. Hyesung leads the charge, his armor radiating accumulated combat buffs. The beast lowers its iron horns, its eyes burning with crimson light. The sheer weight of the Minotaur fractures the ice beneath its hooves as it charges. It unleashes a deafening roar. The hunters clutch their ears as the sonic shockwave hits. The undead horde floods the perimeter, forming a living wall of bone to trap the raid party. The giant gains momentum with every heavy stride, aiming straight for the raid leader. Juyon retaliates, projecting a concentrated burst of fire into the beast's path. The flames strike the thick armor plates, exploding on impact but leaving no visible damage. Hyesung commands his archers to focus their fire on the beast's exposed joints. The agile fighters cast taunt spells, desperate to break the Minotaur's charge. A barrage of magic connects, rattling the giant's equilibrium. It stops its advance, digging its hooves into the edge of the cliff. It sweeps its massive arm, launching a scout straight off the precipice. Hyesung ducks under a devastating hook that shatters the stone pillar behind him. The kinetic force forces the SS rank warrior to backpedal across the ice. Hyesung triggers Limit Break, flooding his muscles with raw, untethered power. He grips his broadsword, calculating the exact angle needed to cripple the monster. The Minotaur rears back, preparing to crush him. Hyesung swings upward, aiming for the massive joint in the creature's left leg. The blade bites deep into the exposed flesh, severing the thick tendons. The beast drops to one knee, its balance shattered. Hyesung does not hesitate. He prepares the execution strike. He brings the greatsword down, with enough force to split a mountain. He smirks, knowing the giant has nowhere left to retreat on the narrow ridge. The Minotaur's heavy weapon shatters under the pressure of the assault. It howls in agony, clutching its ruined arm. The giant stomps its remaining good leg, cracking the ground beneath beneath them. The fault lines spread. The ice beneath Juyan gives way. Juyan falls backward into the abyss. He opens his interface in midair, frantically scrolling for a copied survival skill. He activates Fly. A glowing aura suspends him above the deadly drop. He catches Hyeji around the waist just before she plummets into the darkness. Her brother screams in pure panic from the safety of the ledge. Above them, the Minotaur swings its massive fists, intent on flattening the raid leader. Hyesung blocks the strike, his boots sliding backward across the frost. He grits his teeth. The physical pressure of the blow is staggering. A massive arc of golden light slices through the frozen air. The strike connects, tearing through the Minotaur's chest armor. The colossal body teeters on the edge of the broken cliff. It collapses, sending a shockwave of snow and dust across the battlefield. The raid members cheer. The vanguard line holds firm. Hyesung stands victorious, his broadsword resting comfortably on his shoulder. The tank points out a glaring issue. The massive beast dropped 0 high-tier loot. Juyan checks his system window. He did not absorb a boss soul. The system displays the only drop, Barton's double-edged axe, an S-rank weapon, but nowhere near field boss tier. Hyesung offers Juyan the priority purchase right. As the MVP buffer, or he gets first pick. Juyan smiles his signature capitalist smile. He wants unconditional priority rights for the actual field boss item. He promises to pay 50% of the appraised market value in straight cash. Hyesung considers the offer. 10 billion won is a massive payout for a blind gamble. The Daehan Guildmaster accepts the contract, sealing the deal with a firm handshake. System alerts suddenly flood Juyan's vision. A deadly plague debuff seeps out of the frozen ground. The snow turns a sickly purple as a massive secondary monster wave approaches. The Raider Guild operatives drop their mercenary disguises. The ambush begins. A towering skeletal figure emerges from the frozen fog, wielding a massive dark scythe. A blinding flash of holy light erupts from the center of the defensive formation. Saintess Suha steps forward, then casting a massive barrier to repel the toxic fog. The Jinli cultists rally behind her, preparing a holy counterattack. The cult leader, Cheolmin, watches with a sickening, manipulative grin. He views her purely as a tool. The skeletal boss raises its scythe, targeting the squishy healers in the backline. The blade comes down, carving straight through the mercenaries' defensive formation. Panic spreads as the vanguard collapses under the sheer ferocity of the undead swarm. The system announces the true master of the Hell Plague, Legion Commander Habrid. Habrid glares at the raid party, its hollow eye sockets burning with crimson light. The Reaper descends, moving with terrifying, erratic speed. The cultists scream as the dark energy strips away their protective buffs. A mercenary tries to block the scythe, but the weapon phases right through his shield. Habrid swings again. The defensive line is torn apart. Cheolmin hurls a massive sphere of holy fire, desperately trying to push the boss back. The flames explode against Habrid's ribcage, but the boss barely flinches. The system identifies Habrid's ultimate skill, summary execution. Heiji realizes the danger. The skill places a lethal mark on a target, guaranteeing an instant kill. Habrid locks onto Heiji, the scythe raised high above its head. Juyan realizes he has mere seconds to act before his manager gets cut in half. He grabs Heiji and pulls her back, desperate to break the targeting sequence. The Saintess steps in front of them, radiating pure holy energy. Cheolmin yells at her to fall back. She is the cult's most valuable asset, and Suha ignores him, extending her hands toward the sky. A massive wave of golden light washes over the entire battlefield. She casts Goddess's Tears, an SS rank miracle that consumes her own life force to heal everyone in range. Hyeji and the tank watch in awe as their stamina and mana pools hit maximum capacity instantly. Habrid reels backward, its dark aura burning away under the intense holy light. Suha smiles weakly. She used her ultimate trump card to give them a fighting chance. Cheolmin grabs her violently, furious that she wasted her power on outsiders. He berates her, revealing that her only purpose is to serve the cult's twisted agenda. Juyan watches the cult leader assault the girl who just saved their lives. Habrid recovers, summoning an impenetrable plague shield. Juyan opens his skill menu. He only has one storage slot left. Hyesung charges the boss, but his heavy sword bounces harmlessly off the dark barrier. The tank struggles to hold back a fresh wave of resurrected bone knights. Juyan unleashes a barrage of fireballs, trying to test the shield's durability. The flames shatter against the barrier without leaving a single scratch on the bone. Habrid raises its scythe again, its eye sockets flaring with renewed malice. Hyesung orders an immediate retreat. The boss has entered its second phase. The ground beneath them turns into a bubbling, toxic green swamp. Juyan checks his system. The environmental poison is stripping their health rapidly. He realizes basic elemental attacks are useless here. He needs an overwhelming counter. Cheolmin drags Suha away, intending to use the Daehan Guild as bait for their escape. Suha breaks free, all refusing to abandon the hunters who fought beside her. She channels another burst of holy light, desperately trying to cleanse the toxic swamp. She collapses to her knees, The massive HP drain is tearing her physical body apart. Habrid launches a massive wave of dark energy straight at her fragile form. Hyesung tries to intercept, but the kinetic force knocks him entirely off balance. Cheolman declares the raid a failure and abandons the front line without a second thought. Juyeon steps forward, his brown robe snapping in the frozen wind. He has made his choice. A tragic memory surfaces. Suha was just a normal high school girl with a loving mother. The day the dimensional gates opened, an explosion ruined their quiet lives forever. Her mother ended up in a coma, kept alive only by mounting hospital bills, and Cheolman preyed on her desperation, promising salvation and medical care in exchange for her holy powers. She prays for a hero, someone strong enough to save her from this endless nightmare. Cheolman stands over her in the present, demanding she use the final remnants of her power. She refuses. She realizes the cult never intended to save her mother, only to use her. Juyeon triggers his ultimate combination, channeling the power he kept hidden. He activates Descent, taking on the aspect of a fallen angel. Massive white wings erupt from his back, bathing the frozen wasteland in blinding golden light. He grins. The stat multipliers push his magic power beyond the system's natural limits. A colossal barrage of glowing holy swords rains down from the heavens. The blades annihilate the undead horde, vaporizing the toxic swamp on contact. Ishobrid raises its scythe to block the assault, but the sheer volume of attack shatters its defense. Juyeon points his blade directly at the Reaper, ready to finish the job. He executes one slash severance, a massive wave of golden fire that cuts the boss clean in half. The system confirms the kill. Juyeon absorbs the soul of Legion Commander Habrid. The team stares in absolute disbelief. The S-rank boss was deleted in a matter of seconds. Juyeon celebrates his massive loot drop. Purified Mind, granting immunity to all low-tier status effects. Cheolman steps forward, his arrogant smirk entirely gone. He demands the boss item, claiming it belongs to the Jinli cult by divine right. Juyeon pulls a broken sword from a dead raider's gear and presents it with a massive, fake smile. He insists this pathetic and a rusty blade is the only thing the boss dropped. Hyesung approaches, knowing exactly what Juyeon is doing, but decides to play along for now. Suha watches the exchange. She knows Juyeon is lying through his teeth, and she finds it hilarious. Cheolman's face twists with rage. He accuses Juyeon of deceiving God's proxy. Juyeon stares him down, daring the scam artist to prove his claim. He tosses the rusty sword to Cheolman, formally surrendering his MVP priority right to the garbage item. Cheolman accepts the blade, thinking he just outsmarted the raid leader. Suha steps away from the cultists, her eyes locked on Juyeon. She loudly declares that the cult leaders are cowards, not heroes. She points directly at Juyeon. This overpowered capitalist is the hero she chooses to follow. Cheolman snaps. He realizes he just lost his golden goose. Now he checks the stats on the rusted sword. It is a C-rank item that actually increases damage taken. Juyeon laughs hysterically, mocking the cult leader's absolute stupidity. Hyeji and her brother quickly usher Juyeon away before Cheolman can organize an attack. Safe behind the vanguard line, Hyeji demands to know where the real boss item is. Juyeon smirks, revealing that he hid the real drop in the snow while the cult was distracted. Suha approaches Juyeon, looking slightly embarrassed by her grand declaration earlier. She bows deeply, offering her services as his dedicated Saintess. Juyeon recoils in horror. He does not want a religious fanatic following him around. Suha cries real tears, admitting she has nowhere else to go now that she defected. Cut to a private luxury jet. Juyeon sits in first class, and a massive black sword resting in his lap. He admires the cursed holy sword of the plague. It is an SS rank weapon with absurd stat boosts. He yawns, exhausted from the raid. He just wants to go home and sleep for a week. Back in Seoul, the news goes wild. The Daehan Guild conquered an E-class special field with 0 casualties. Lin Xiaoling reads the casualty report for her raider squad. Her fury is palpable. Her entire elite team was wiped out, and the target is still alive. She gives a chilling order. She places a 200 Bitcoin bounty on Yu Juyeon's head. Juyeon steps off the plane, immediately blinded by a swarm of reporters and camera flashes. Hyesung takes the microphone, formally naming Psycho Pass as the MVP of the expedition. Juyeon sleeps soundly on the flight, completely unaware that he is now the most famous man in the country. He finally reaches his hotel room door. Eager to crash, he turns around. Suha is standing right behind him with her luggage, fully intent on moving in. Suha stands in the doorway, her eyes shining with pure fanaticism. She declares she will follow the hero to the ends of the earth. Juyeon screams his refusal. A religious zealot is the last thing he wants in his quiet penthouse. He holds up a massive stack of cash. He demands to know why an S-rank healer is trying to mooch free rent. Suha pulls out an even larger, unbanded stack of straight cash to cover her stay. Juyeon's entire demeanor shifts. The capitalist mage welcomes his new paying tenant without a second thought. Hyeji chops him on the back of the head. She refuses to let him sell his privacy for a bribe. Suha beams with joy. She confesses she fell for him the moment he wiped out the undead horde. She blushes, admitting her feelings developed while watching him save the vanguard. Why she describes his angelic descent as the coolest thing she has ever witnessed in her life. Hyeji crosses her arms, cutting through the praise. She demands to know Suha's actual ulterior motive. She leans over the couch, glaring down at Juyeon. She suspects the Saintess is acting as a spy. Hyeji insists she is his official exclusive partner. The territorial instincts are flaring up hard. Sang-wook steps out of his room, walking on eggshells around the sheer tension in the living area. He sighs, mentally begging Juyeon to fix this dynamic before the two women tear the penthouse apart. Later that night, Juyeon finally gets a moment of peace in his bedroom. He opens his system interface to settle his accounts from the Hell Plague raid. He grins like an absolute maniac. 150,000 points sit ready for expenditure. He opens his inventory, staring at the mysterious plague seed he harvested from the frozen wasteland. The system offers 0 clues on where or how to plant an S-rank biological anomaly. He decides to bench the seed for now and focus on his sub-trade upgrades. He points at the holographic panel, locking in his decision. Expanding his skill storage is the most logical move. The system chimes, confirming the upgrade ticket consumption. He checks the details. Skill storage is now level 1. He gapes at the screen. Storing an X-rank skill permanently increases its overall effect by 50%. He crosses his legs, pulling out the random skill enhancement ticket he earned from the boss kill. He applies it directly to his Descent ability. The cooldown drops from 30 days to 10. The panic button is now a viable, frequent tool. He smirks, deeply satisfied with his new god tier progression. A few days later, Juyeon stands on a floating metal walkway at the Incheon fish farm field. A massive aquatic lizard lunges from the surf, jaws snapping shut inches from the vanguard. Juyeon draws his cursed holy sword. He wants to test his new melee capabilities. Hyeji blasts an incoming armored shark with a dense, roaring wall of fire. Juyeon leaps over the surf, moving with vanguard-level agility, despite his mage class. Suha raises her hands, channeling a massive, multi-layered prayer of recovery and strength onto him. Juyeon grins, giving her a thumbs up. The divine buffs make his body feel lighter than air. From a nearby boat, a squad of masked mercenaries watches him fight. They note his reliance on the sword. Suha runs along the walkway, and unaware that the hit squad is plotting to separate her from the team. Back at the User Association headquarters, a clerk delivers highly frustrating news. Suha cannot claim her raid rewards because her guild contract dictates all payouts go directly to the Truth Sect. The cult refuses to process her withdrawal paperwork, effectively freezing all her financial assets. A flashback plays. The Daehan Guildmaster utilizes similar sponsor contracts, but with actual celebrity perks. Suha realizes she must apply for termination in person. The cult leader is forcing a confrontation. Juyeon claps his hands, delighted. He views the cult's impending collapse as prime entertainment. Suha promises to help him in any way she can once she cuts her ties to the scammers. Hyeji watches them chat, her eyes narrowing with blatant jealousy. She turns her back, frustrated by her own limitations as a pure range damage dealer. She remembers her promise to be the absolute best user in the world. She screams her frustration into the empty forest. She hates standing in the backline, while Juyeon risks his neck. Juyeon steps out of the brush, trying to calm her down. He insists range dealers are not supposed to take the lead. Hyeji snaps at him. She refuses to be someone who just cheers from the sidelines. She turns and marches deeper into the woods to cool her head. Juyeon sweats, turning to Sang-wook for help with the explosive emotional situation. Sang-wook tells him to stay put. He reminds Juyeon that the forest is not a safe zone. He admits the truth. Juyeon's raw power and Suha's buffs are making the original party members feel obsolete. Sang-wook rubs his neck, not embarrassed to admit his sister's raging inferiority complex. He promises to bring her back. He knows true strength comes from covering each other's blind spots. Juyeon is left standing alone in the clearing, digesting the heavy conversation. Hyeji suddenly stops in her tracks. A terrible realization hits her. Leaving the world's most hunted man unguarded in a hostile zone is a massive tactical error. A thick, unnatural fog rolls through the trees, isolating Juyeon entirely. A heavily armed assassin steps out of the mist, wielding a massive warhammer. The raider operative expected a squishy mage. He is confused by the longsword resting in Juyeon's grip. Juyeon draws the blade. He realizes his memories of his past life are bleeding into his current instincts. He drops into a perfect vanguard stance, ready to execute a flawless counter. He parries the heavy hammer strike, sliding back from the kinetic force. Juyeon retaliates, blasting the assassin with a concentrated burst of fire. The system issues a warning. The operative possesses a high-tier damage reflection skill. Juyeon takes the recoil force of his own spell, staggering backward as the energy hits his chest. Hyeji and Sang-wook rush back into the clearing, drawing their weapons to intercept the hit squad. 3 more operatives step out of the fog, intending to finish the job. Hyeji prepares to cast, warning Juyeon about the damage reflection barrier. Juyeon raises his hand, halting her advance. He wants to handle this his own way. He ignites his sword. If magic reflects, he will just rely on overwhelming physical experience. He swings the blade, unleashing a spinning vortex of flames. He does not aim for the armor. He burns the oxygen right out of the air. The operatives choke, their lungs searing from the intense ambient radiant heat. Ju-young closes the gap before they can recover their breath. He drives his shield into the lead assassin, pinning him to the dirt. He locks eyes with Heiji, showing her that combat requires more than just raw damage numbers. She smiles. His improvisational tactics prove why they make a perfect team. Heiji turns to her brother, demanding to know why they ever left him alone in the first place. Ju-yeon interrupts the bickering. Yati formally requests a position swap to close combat swordsman. Cut to a secure government boardroom. A top official points to a massive map. A treasure-class dungeon has spawned right on the border of the DMZ. Sending a massive army would trigger an international incident. They need a discreet, highly lethal strike team. The official names the two S-rank candidates, Lee Hye-sung and Yu Ju-yeon. Director Han pulls up Ju-yeon's file. The paperwork still lists him as an F-rank healer. Han plans to force Ju-yeon into service using the fraudulent registration as leverage. In the penthouse, Suha throws her arms wide. Her guild termination is finally processed. She reveals a dark web sponsor threatened to cut off funding unless the cult let her walk. Hyeji connects the dots. Someone powerful is intentionally clearing obstacles from Ju-yeon's path. Aishi hands Ju-yeon his new fully optimized skill setup for his transition to melee combat. They sit around the table to clarify their new party roles. Sang-wook takes the permanent vanguard tank position. Hyeji claims the dedicated range dealer spot, and Ju-yeon locks in as the close combat swordsman. The phone buzzes on the table. The caller ID shows the user association headquarters. Director Han speaks, demanding Ju-yeon present himself for an immediate, mandatory briefing. Han paces the hallway, confident that his blackmail strategy will force the rookie into compliance. He expects the kid to panic under the threat of a nationwide user ban. He opens the boardroom door and freezes. 3 S-rank veterans are standing right behind his target. Han sweats, politely asking why Ju-yeon brought his entire entourage to a classified meeting. Yaheji steps forward, her corporate smile razor sharp. She introduces herself as his legal management. Han tries to assert authority, claiming the association must take custody of the inexperienced rookie. Sang-wook crosses his arms, his physical presence acting as an impenetrable wall. Han yields. He drops the threats and switches to a procedural negotiation. Hyeji slides a stack of legal documents across the desk, dismantling his leverage point by point. Han realizes he cannot bully them. He pivots, offering the massive benefits of an official association contract. Ju-yeon zones out. The promise of national-level legal protection bores him to tears. Han plays his final card. Priority purchase rights for any equipment recovered from the DMZ. Ju-yeon rejects it. He cares about high-tier skills, not standard armor pieces. Han groans. I'm forced to offer the mission as a private independent commission. He projects the DMZ map. Energy waves from the field creation are already spilling over the border. Han admits the terrifying truth. The advanced team lost contact within 10 minutes. Sang-wook demands better compensation for walking into a confirmed death trap. Han cracks. He promises they can each take 1 item from the treasure hoard, free of charge. Ju-yeon leads his team out of the building, stretching his arms. The capitalist mage secured his payout. Sang-wook groans. He finished his military service years ago, and now he is heading back to the northern border. Ju-yeon reassures him. The Daihan Guildmaster is joining them, tipping the scales massively in their favor. He flashes a greedy grin. He plans to collect a massive interest payment on his tax dollars. He pulls the plague seed from his pocket, eager to test its potential. They arrive at the frozen border fence, bundled in heavy combat gear. Hye-sung approaches through the snow, fully armored and radiating SS rank pressure. Ju-yeon counts the heads. 9 people feels incredibly light for an unconfirmed S-rank field. A glowing light descends through the trees, answering his question. A girl with twin buns and massive glowing wings lands softly in front of them. They cross the threshold into the field. The temperature plummets, triggering an immediate cold debuff. A massive mutated tiger erupts from the snow, its fur radiating pure frost energy. The beast slams into Sang-wook's shield. The tank grunts, his boots sliding back against the frozen earth. The entire pack lunges. Their claws tear through the blizzard, aiming for the backline. Hyeji steps out from cover, unleashing a colossal torrent of fire to melt the incoming frost. Hye-sung barks orders. This is a battle of attrition, and they need to push through before the cold claims them. The vanguard clears the path, cutting down the mutated beasts without breaking stride. They discover a massive frozen waterfall deep in the valley. Suha notes the soil feels strange. It vibrates with an unnatural living pulse. The scout points to a narrow gap behind the ice. The lost advance team tracked a signal into that cavern. They step inside. The cavern is illuminated by a blinding golden light. The floor is literally buried in gold coins, artifacts, and unappraised treasure boxes. Hyeji picks up a glowing staff, identifying it as a pristine S-rank weapon. Sang-wook finds a high-tier ring, his eyes wide at the defensive stats. The scout runs ahead, eager to secure his share. His foot snaps a hidden tripwire over a massive skull. The seal breaks. The grudge of the dead floods the cavern. Spectral hands erupt from the gold, latching onto the panicked hunters. The phantoms phase right through physical weapons, immune to the vanguard's strikes. Hye-sung activates his holy armament skill, coating his massive axe in divine light. He swings the weapon, carving a path through the spectral horde. Ju-yeon follows suit, channeling his own holy attribute into the cursed sword. Hyeji detonates a firestorm, incinerating the phantoms swarming the backline. Hyoju steps into the center of the formation. She activates Relic of blessing. A massive barrier of light expands outward, shielding the team from the encroaching darkness. The cavern floor shudders violently. The gold coins shift and fall into massive cracks. The corrupted world tree breaches the surface, towering over the raid party like a god of death. The system confirms the threat. It is a level 70 boss with overwhelming vitality and lethal poison traits. The tree releases miasma of decay, instantly stacking toxic debuffs on everyone in the room. Hyoju pushes past her limits, casting Heavenly Symphony. Juyeon checks his status window. All of his stats just spiked by a staggering 3,000 points. But the raw power output drains Hyoju entirely. She collapses to her knees, gasping for breath. Massive roots lash across the cavern, aiming for the exhausted buffer. The wood wraps around her waist, dragging her into the crushing dark. Suha steps forward, her eyes burning with resolve. She activates Goddess's Sacrifice. The skill consumes 95% of her life force to instantly cleanse the entire party of all debuffs. Even the toxic fog burns away under the sheer intensity of her divine light. Juyeon triggers his ultimate attack, channeling the massive stat buffs into his blade. A tidal wave of holy fire erupts from his sword, crashing into the massive trunk. The bark shatters. The holy flames rip through the corrupted wood, reducing the boss to cinders. The smoke clears. The team pants heavily, staring at the charred remains of the world tree. The celebration is cut brutally short as the shadows shift. Dozens of heavily armed North Korean soldiers step out of the dark, their rifles raised. The commanding officer demands their immediate surrender. They are trespassing in restricted territory. Juyeon raises his hands, a calm, deeply annoying smirk on his face. He checks the timer on his descent skill. He has plenty of time left to cause a scene. He leaps into the air, his massive wings unfurling over the stunned soldiers. Sang-wook grips his shield, bracing for the inevitable hail of gunfire. Juyeon snaps his fingers. The entire raid party vanishes in a blinding flash of teleportation magic. The soldiers lower their weapons, staring at an empty cavern. The treasure and the intruders are completely gone. Back in Seoul, the news networks praise the association for resolving the DMZ crisis without a political incident. Juyeon sits in his penthouse, exhausted but thoroughly entertained by the media spin. Director Han reviews the mission report, his hair turned completely gray from the stress of covering up the teleportation stunt. Suha inspects her newly acquired S-rank staff, beaming with pride at her massive upgrade. Hyeji holds her own new weapon. The loot run was a massive, the undisputed success for the entire team. Sang-wook admires his defensive ring, thrilled to finally have gear matching his vanguard status. Juyeon pulls out his spray bottle. He planted the plague seed in the dirt he stole from the world tree. The seed instantly sprouted into a strange, pulsing purple fruit. The scene shifts to the association. Director Han hands over the final cart of recovered boss materials. Suha inspects the dirt, noting the lingering aura of the corrupted boss. She suggests nurturing the egg. It might yield a permanent stat boost or a god-tier item upon hatching. Juyeon collects his share of the loot from the loading dock, ignoring Han's exhausted glare. He accepts the final delivery, fully satisfied with his haul. The operation is officially concluded. Texas, USA. A massive C-rank raid is underway in a barren desert field. The American team, led by John Smith, corners a massive reptilian boss. John flexes his muscles, leading the hero's vanguard with absolute confidence. A masked operative steps out of the dust storm, carving straight through the boss's thick hide. John recognizes the attacker. It is a Raider Guild executive, here to steal the boss item. The operative moves with lethal efficiency, intending to wipe the entire squad to secure the drop. He cuts John down. The system confirms the death of the American squad leader. A flashback hits. The operative is the father of the squad leader, Juyeon, vaporized with meteor rain. The operative glares at the sky, his hands coated in poison, seeking vengeance for his fallen son. The field begins to violently destabilize as the boss dies. The sky tears open. The system issues an apocalyptic warning. Dimensional energy is congregating unnaturally. A colossal figure steps through the rift, a demonic clown with glowing yellow eyes. The upper demon, Lernendo, grins at the surviving hunters. His mere presence crushes the gravity in the field. He speaks, his voice echoing directly into their minds in a dozen different languages. He announces his intention to consume this world, as his own realm has run completely dry. Lernendo pulls out a massive, blood-red die. He offers the operative a simple game for his life. Roll the human face and win. The operative rolls. The die lands on the human figure. He exhales, thinking he survived the encounter. Lernendo blasts a hole straight through the operative's chest, laughing off the result as a simple mistake. The operative hits the dirt, not his life fading. He states he has no regrets. He died serving his guild. Lernendo offers him a final deal, the power to reverse his death and claim his vengeance against Juyeon. The operative accepts. He dons the dark mask, officially becoming the entity known as Sword Ghost. Back in Seoul, Juyeon reads the glaring red text on his interface. Main Quest 4. Defeat the Upper Demon. Lernendo in Texas, or Earth will be swiftly conquered. If you want part 2, subscribe and comment in the section for part 2, and subscribe to Manhwa Regress channel.